Okay, Mr. Marshall. Let's see, you have a quorum of the board. Mr. Malloy is with us tonight in the house. The attendees are coming on in. Amherst Media is here with us. You are the co-host of this meeting. I'll let you say what time it is, but I think we're good to go.
All right, thank you, Pam.
You're welcome.
Welcome to the Amherst Planning Board meeting of October 8th, 2025. My name is Doug Marshall, and as chair of the Amherst Planning Board, I am calling this meeting to order at 6:35 p.m. This meeting is being recorded and is available live stream via Amherst Media. Minutes are being taken. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, extended by Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, and further extended by Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, this Planning Board meeting will be conducted via remote means using the Zoom platform. The Zoom meeting link is available on the meeting agenda, posted on the town website's calendar listing for this meeting, or go to the Planning Board webpage and click on the most recent agenda, where the Zoom link is listed at the top of the page. No in-person attendance of the public is permitted. However, every effort will be made to ensure the public can access the meeting in real time via technological means. In the event public access is disrupted for reasons of economic hardship or despite our best efforts, we will post an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting on the town's website. Board members, I will take a roll call. When I call your name, unmute yourself, answer affirmatively, and return to mute. Bruce Colden.
I am here.
Fred Hartwell.
I am here.
Jesse Major.
Present.
I, Doug Marshall, am present. Angus McLeod.
Present.
We've been told that Johanna Newman will be absent this evening, and Jarrah Smith has informed us he will arrive later, probably in about an hour from now. So we have 5 members present. That is a quorum. Board members, if technical issues arise and the discussion needs to pause, it will be noted in the minutes. Please use the raise hand function to ask a question or make a comment, and I will call on you to speak. After speaking, remember to remute yourself. To the general public comment item is reserved for public comment regarding items not on tonight's agenda. Please be aware the board will not respond to comments during general public comment period. Public comment may also be heard at other times during the meeting when deemed appropriate by the planning board chair. Please indicate you wish to make a comment by clicking on the raise hand button when public comment is solicited. If you have joined the Zoom meeting using a telephone, please indicate you wish to make a comment by pressing *9 on your phone. When called on, please identify yourself by stating your full name and address and put yourself back into mute when finished speaking. Residents can express their views for up to 3 minutes or at the discretion of the planning board chair. If a speaker does not comply with these guidelines or exceeds their allotted time, their participation may be disconnected from the meeting. Okay, that's the preamble. And first item on the agenda now at 6:39 is our minutes for approval. Pam, looks like you have sent around the minutes for May 7th of this year for approval.
Correct.
All right, board members, were there any comments on the minutes? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised. So in that case, I will solicit a motion to approve the minutes as drafted for May 7th. And Bruce, you got your hand up before Jesse.
So moved, and they were colossally complete. I was amazing amount of work put into those minutes, but we really need that much work, but they're certainly there. They're accurate. It's a long-winded motion.
All right. Thank you, Bruce. And Jesse?
I will second that.
All right. Thank you both. Any further discussion? All right, we'll go right into a roll call vote, starting with you, Bruce,
I'm an I.
and Fred,
Aye.
Angus,
Aye.
and Jesse.
Aye.
And I'm an I as well. So that's 5 in favor, 2 members absent. The motion passes. All right. Let's see. The time now is 6:40, and we'll go to the public comment period. And at this time, I generally read the names of the members of the public who are in attendance. And while I'm doing that, if there are any members of the public who would like to make a comment at this time about something that does not appear later on our agenda, this is the time to raise your hand. So I see eight attendees. They are Bella Delfino, Chris Skelly, Carrington Massengill, Milena Raslavekis. That's probably mispronounced. My apologies. Patrick Meehan, Rafal Tosco, Rula Kofides, and Steve Bloom. So again, 8 members. At this point, I don't see any hands. I will linger for another few seconds to see if anybody wants to make a comment at this point. And I really ought to apologize to several of you that I probably mispronounced your name. Okay, I don't think there are any public comments tonight, other than at least on our general topic. All right, we'll go right into the public hearing. This hearing was advertised for 6:35 p.m. and the time now is 6:42. In accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law 40A, this joint public hearing has been duly advertised and notice thereof has been posted and is being held for the purpose of providing the opportunity for interested citizens to be heard regarding SPR 2026-1 and SPP 2026-1. The applicant is Rula Kofides and the address is 363 Main Street. Request site plan review approval under section 3.325 of the zoning bylaw for a mixed-use building to reduce the first floor commercial space to 650 square feet and construct a new 4-bedroom residential unit, and request a special permit to amend previous special permit ZBA 91-45, including conditions under section 9.22 of the zoning bylaw. Located in the BVC, which is Village Center Business zoning district on map 14B and parcel 60. Is there any board member disclosure? Not seeing anyone shake their head yes. Everybody shook their head no. All right, so Pam, why don't we bring the applicant into the panel? I know that I guess it's
Rula,
Ms.
I'm trying to,
Kofides.
there she goes. So Rula's coming over. Um,
Are
I'm
there
not
any
sure.
other people
Well,
from representing them?
I'm not sure. So when she gets here, we're gonna ask-
I haven't seen her move yet.
she promote to panelist. Nate,
Yeah, so just quickly, Rula and anyone here, you're an attendee now, and then we'll ask you to be promoted to panelist. And I just tried as well. You might get a little pop-up window
Do
asking
you
you to
want
be
me to
promoted.
try it?
Or we could just allow them to talk, Pam, I guess, if that's not working.
you tried it too, Nate? Oh,
I
here
did.
comes Rula is declining. Oh, there's a hand raised.
All right, so there's a hand from Nick Kofidis' phone. So, hello, Nick, or Rula.
It's Rula Kofidis. Hi. My computer froze and I'm back on my cell phone. Can you hear me?
Yes,
We
we can.
can.
Welcome.
Hello. So I missed part of it because my phone is going in and out. I don't know why. And my computer is going in and out. Hello?
Hello.
Hi, Rula. Rula, are there other people here to support you with your presentation?
Yes, Patrick Meehan is there and Rafal Tosco as well.
Okay, I'm going to try to promote them.
Here's Patrick.
Hey, good evening, everyone. How we doing? It's Patrick Meehan with Maroy Construction.
Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you.
And Rafal has joined us. He's still muted.
Not
There we
anymore.
go.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
Hey, Rafa.
And Rafal, are you part of the one of the contractors, or?
I am the architect on the project.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So, do any of you have a presentation you wish to make to us this evening?
Yes. Hi, good evening. My name is Rula Kofidis, and we are looking to renovate the first floor of 363 Main Street into one 4-bedroom dwelling unit with 2 baths and 32% of it to be commercial space rental in the front. There are already 2 3-bedroom units on the second floor.
Okay. Are there any, do you want to present any of the graphic materials that were in the packet or any other graphic materials or not?
What material? With the site plan and everything, the design plan has been emailed over to the planning board.
Yeah, all that stuff. We often show that kind of thing at our public hearings.
Yes.
Rolla, if you'd like, I have it readily available. I can share
Yeah.
these.
Please.
Okay. All right. Please let me know once you see it.
We can see it.
Let's see.
As Rolla mentioned, all of the material was previously distributed to the board. Here in orange, we have the outline of the existing building. The outline of the renovation does not include any exterior additions, so we are staying within the footprint of the building. On this site plan, we can see Main Street up above here, and the existing parking spaces that were recently delineated on this site plan and submitted for review. So we have 1 parking space here, and 1, 2, 3, 4 parking spaces in the back. Rua, is there anything else you wanted to add to the site plan information?
Nope. No.
Okay, any questions about the site plan, or should I go through the architectural drawings?
Why don't you go through all of them and then we will ask our questions.
Okay. Bear with me for a second. So we have the existing condition drawings. Again, the first floor is currently all commercial space with a pizza restaurant out front and support spaces in the back. There's means of egress for the apartments up above, being this staircase here, this staircase in the middle, which is accessed through this door, and this staircase over here going up to the apartment. Here's the footprint or the plan of the 2 apartments on the second floor, 1 over here and 1 over here, and those are both 3-bedroom apartments. Existing elevations. Front of the building facing Main Street, that's the side elevation facing the parking lot. The other side elevation as well as the back elevation. Demolition plans. So we are basically almost gutting the entire first floor except for the staircases going up to the second floor. Second floor does not include any improvements or renovations. Again, demolition elevations, we are providing one new door in this location and filling in an existing door in this location here. The front of the building remains as is with the existing door and existing openings as well as existing lights. We are removing and replacing some of the mechanical equipment associated with the kitchen on the first floor. On the side elevation, we are providing 3 new windows to the bedrooms on the first floor here, as well as one more window in the back of the building. We are also replacing the 3 existing wood framed staircases leading to the existing doors, and those will be replaced in kind. Those are some details for the construction drawings. Here's the proposed floor plan. We're looking at the commercial space out front. The only modifications to that space, we are opening it up. We're providing an ADA compliant restroom. We're providing a second dedicated means of egress to the 650 square foot commercial space over here, as well as 2 utility closets for water meters, electrical meters, and fire suppression system, which will be also added to the entire building. Again, second floor, we're not changing the layout of the second floor. Elevations, we are filling in one door in this location. We are providing new door in this location. What's not shown here is we will have a wall-mounted mini split systems in this location right here and right over here. So this one is basically going to be replaced because we do have one right now, and there's going to be a new one in this nook over here. Some of this information is no longer valid as this project went through several phases. We're going to replace the front door, but this door is going to be the replaced doors on this elevation here, as well as lights to match the existing lights out front. New windows on the side elevation, new window in the back on the back elevation. And here's just a diagram showing the 650 square foot commercial space out front, as well as the 4-bedroom new unit in the back with the 2 means of egress and 2 means of egress for the commercial space on the first floor. This is just for reference, the second floor with the 2 units. Reflected ceiling plans, code review drawings. And then we do have MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection engineering drawings as well. I'm not going to bore you with the details, but basically we have all the electrical demo on the first floor, new electrical, lighting, power. Second floor is just life safety and a fire alarm, fire protection, sprinkler system on the first and second floor, plumbing demolition, new plumbing for the kitchen and restrooms on the first floor, no plumbing work on the second floor, and then mechanical demolition and proposed mechanical drawings. And here's the 2 wall-mounted units, as I mentioned previously. And that would conclude the drawings.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Rula, is there anything you'd like to add?
No. Thank you.
All right, so let's see. Do we have a site visit report? I think it might be Angus. Were you the only one that showed up at the site visit?
And Nate.
Okay. Anything either of you want to say?
You can go first, Nate.
I mean, I submitted something to the board. You know, I think at the site visit, we had asked about the gooseneck lights on the front, and they were confirmed to remain. There are small existing wall pack lights down mounted, downcast on the corners of the building. They're going to remain. There's ample space in the parking lot to access the spaces. So on the site plan, it's kind of hard to see, but when you're there, the number 5 parking space, a car can maneuver in and out of it. And then at the rear of the building, they're proposing maybe additional screening for the trash. It says here in green. That's really not necessary. It's already enclosed on two sides by a fence, and so if you're looking to the right, it's open, but you can't see that from anywhere, and it allows then easy access to the trash containers to be rolled out to the front. So, you know, it seemed like that this proposed trash and recycling screening is not necessary because it already is screened. That's
All
what I
right, so am I right? There's no change to the exterior lighting?
There's on the new entryways, above each entryway facing the alley, there's new gooseneck lighting
Okay,
to match something was out front. So it was shown in one of the plans as
Yep.
yeah.
There was a sort of catalog cut.
Yeah.
There it was. Yeah. Okay, so there'd be the additional 4 along this elevation.
Right.
All right. Anything else on the site visit?
We were curious about mini splits, but the presentation just covered that.
Okay. All right. I don't remember if I asked about it, if there was any board disclosure. So I assume
You did.
I did not. So is
No,
there
you
any
did.
disclosure that anybody wants to make? All right. All right. So we're now ready for questions from the board. And although it's not a question, I'll just start and say that I'm glad to see all the drawings. It's a very clear presentation, and I wish all of our applicants showed up with this level of detail.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board members, questions? Any questions at all? Bruce?
Doug, I agree with you. Very clear presentation, and Rafael, you went through a very large amount of drawings very quickly, which was good, because you're right, these had been presented, but it was nice to have it brought to the public. My question is not really for the applicant, it's for Nate. I'm sure there's a reason, but I couldn't help being a little confused when I looked at the applications where there is a change to a special permit issued by the zoning board, and I don't understand why we are, as a planning board, supervising deliberations on the change to a special permit issued by the zoning board. Am I misunderstanding something here? But that I couldn't make head and tail of that particular first or second sentence in the initial application.
Sure. Yeah. So there's 2 reasons. You know, it was a special permit in 1991. One is that it's a non-conforming building, so you know they needed a special permit to allow, at the time, a change of use, and then a mixed-use building at the time was a special permit use. And so now, as a mixed-use building is a site plan review use, and so you know that's the guiding permit there. So you know the planning board can act as a special permit granting authority in this instance to modify the.
Understood. That's yeah. I guess I could have guessed that, but I didn't. Thank you. That helps anybody else who might be similarly confused. I don't have any further questions.
All right.
It's
All right.
we did. I should say I was on the Historic District Commission when we reviewed this from the point of view of looking at it so far as granting a certificate of appropriateness, which we have done. So I've already had I've already had some deliberation on this project, and it's a very light touch. I mean, the building is not what you would call a distinguished building. At least, I mean, I'm thinking from the point of view of historic buildings and historic district commissions and so forth. But it's in the district, and what's being done is having very little effect on the building. Essentially it's a change of use, and almost everything's happening inside. So I think that's why I really don't have a lot to say from a planning board point of view here. I can't think of anything that I'm curious about that I'm not prepared to, that I don't already have an answer and feel positively disposed.
All right. Thank you, Bruce. I guess I will ask, is the exterior of the building being painted at all? Is the color changing, or other than, I mean, I assume these doors will be white, I guess, or What can you tell us about the exterior appearance?
Keeping it the same as it is. As is now, same color.
All right, but it will be repainted or not?
It will be repainted, yes.
Okay, all right. All right, well then, why don't I just ask if the public wants to make any comments at this hearing? This is a time for members of the public to weigh in with their thoughts about this project. And we have 5 members who have not been brought over into the panel. I don't see hands raised from any of them. So in a few seconds, I will conclude there are no public comments. Board members, any further comments from the board? If not, we should probably go right into our findings and conditions, Nate, which I think I saw drafts of in the packet. Why don't we go ahead? I don't see any hand raised from the public, so we'll move on from public comment. And maybe, yeah, let's go back to allowing Nate or Pam to share their screen on.
Sure, yeah, I can share my screen in a minute. I will say in the development application report, there are just a few points to consider. One was, how the parking spaces would be numbered and assigned. Is there anything happening on the exterior, whether, pavement markings? And then, is there any internal storage for bikes or scooters? I think everything else has been clarified. One point I made, and I mentioned at the site visit, was there's a concrete barrier in front on the sidewalk. Would the applicant or the town ever want to change that to something, some other kind of bollard? There is a little bit of right of way in front of the building, and it might be something that we, would encourage the town to do if we think if it's necessary. But this building is directly or opposite Triangle Street on the downhill side, and in the past it has been clipped by a car if it loses control coming down Triangle Street. So, what's there now is really a safety measure. Just wasn't sure if there was a way to make it a little nicer looking, but.
Okay. So to the applicant, is there anything, do you want to respond to any of the questions that Nate had about pavement markings? Are you going to be doing any pavement marking, and how will the parking spaces be assigned?
The parking spaces, yes, they'll be marked, they'll be painted in the back, the parking spots. And I wasn't planning on assigning them because it's just one space per apartment. Depending on their size of the vehicle and what would work at the time. We could figure out who would go where. And
Okay. All right, thank you. Nate, what was your second item? Was it?
Jersey barrier?
The Jersey barrier, and then, like interior storage for bikes or.
Oh, the Jersey barrier, we're thinking maybe
The BID.
working with the BID and asking them if maybe they could help, put a planter there. Or putting, like they have in front of Amherst Coffee.
All right, so that is something that you were thinking the town would take care of, and that you'd work with them on that.
Yes.
All right. Nate, do you think that Jersey barrier is a town installation and property?
It is, yeah. Public Works put it there. I like the idea of the business improvement district to see if they would have something they could also use. I think it is necessary to have something there, and so I wouldn't want it to be removed unless there was something that was capable of providing the same safety for the sidewalk and the building.
Right.
All right. Is that something we might want to put in as a condition?
Yeah, I mean, it might be in the
mean-
right of way, so it's hard to,
Yeah, if it's a town property in the town right away, it's not something we should make as a condition on this
Right.
private owner.
right. Yeah, it's hard to say exactly where the property line is. It's in that location. I didn't, it wasn't clear on the survey where exactly, that ended.
Okay.
They didn't show it, for instance, on the Main Street side, but
Mhm. Bruce, I see your hand.
Yes, I looked through, and as usual, I marked the issues to consider in the development application report, but I didn't see anything there that seemed to not already be asked or answered. The piece about is there sufficient internal storage for bikes? I thought that's really not for us to answer, because we know from previous projects that people frequently take renters frequently take their bikes inside, particularly if they're valuable, and even if there is storage outside, it's not so much intended to be used. So it doesn't seem to be any storage outside, and if people choose or do not choose to take bikes inside, I didn't think it is our business, and we have no idea whether there's internal storage, because that is truly up to the person who decides to put a bike in their bedroom or not. And about the property manager, I was wondering, I didn't know that we needed, but I will see whether my colleagues agree that when you've only got 3 units, a property manager is typically somebody who's at the end of a phone. And I don't know that I would expect that we would have anything more than that. But that was my take on the development report. Other things have been asked and answered.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. I will note that Jara has joined us, I believe 1 minute ago at 7:06. Anyone else have any comments or questions about this proposal? All right, Jara, I'll just call you out. We're not finding much to talk about on this site plan review and special permit application. So there were no public comments, and there were very few comments from the board. In that case, Nate, would it make sense to show the findings and follow that with the conditions? All right, looks like a 1-sentence finding, huh?
yeah, I agree. The development application report had some questions or considerations, and doesn't seem like there's a lot. So there's a simple finding. There's, I don't know, a dozen conditions. I think the last one, the bollard piece, we can remove it. It was just an idea. I don't know if we have to make it a shell. Um, everything else is follows along the development application report, so I can go through those. But
Often there's a bunch of sort of boilerplate conditions about construction.
yeah, I mean, we have right here the substantial changes to the project. The project shall be built substantially in accordance with the plans.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the conditions that often get into, what hours they work and
yeah,
that kind.
yeah. I mean, to me, this is a really small. I mean, I compared to some other larger projects, this is all internal work, and so I didn't. We could add something about hours of work, but it seems like as part of the building permit, it's listed there.
Okay, yeah, I've always thought that all that stuff was kind of superfluous, and that it could just show up in our, our job bylaw or something. So
Right.
I'm fine not having it. I'm just surprised not to see it.
Yeah.
All right, so we usually read through these, and are you prepared to do that, or do you think we don't need to?
Yeah, I just would say, if the plans are revised, just to have, you know, one of the sets showed that the gooseneck lights on the front were going to be removed, and then the plans today didn't. So if there's the final plan set, just, you know, we can make sure there's the correct date there, or have them mailed to, you know, emailed to staff. So, you know, we were saying that this, you know, site plan review, along with the special permit, modify the ZBA permit 1991-45, and that the new survey is, you know, now the new site plan for the property. And so that's, you know, so there's plans from 91 that'll be superseded. The project will be built substantially in accordance with the plan submitted to the board and approved this evening. So there's the architectural plan set, and then the survey. Substantial changes would come back to the board for their review. And then we say the purpose of the submittal shall be for the board to determine or to approve the change or determine if the changes are de minimis or significant enough to require modification of the site plan review. The permit expires within 2 years. All work would be done within 2 years, 24 months. They could get an extension if necessary. The use of the property, number 6, shall be a mixed-use building in accordance with section 3.325 of the bylaw. Include 3 dwelling units, 1 on the ground floor and 2 above, and 1 non-residential space of 650 square feet, representing 32% of the gross floor area. You know, we delineate the bedroom sizes, just to confirm that: 1 4-bedroom, 2 bath on the first floor, and 2 3-bedroom, 1 bath on the second floor. Right now, you know, for this condition 8, there shall be no more than 5 cars parking on the property. All parking spaces shall be delineated and numbered. So we just want to make sure that, that'll be accurate. It sounds like they might not be numbered. You know, at the site visit, Rula said that they might take the site plan and then have that be part of the lease too, and say, well, here's what the site plan showed. You know, you'll be using space 2 or 3, and maybe not number them on the exterior, whether it's signs or on the pavement. So, you know, this could be removed possibly.
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and remove that then?
Parking space number 1, shown along the alley, shall be at least 18 inches from the entryways and delineated with pavement markings. I think that's important. So there's, you know, a nook where there's going to be a new entry proposed, and there's an existing entry and electrical meters, and there is plenty of space for the parking, but it can't get so close to the building that it impedes access to the entries. Trash and recycling will be kept in the containers at the rear of the property. You know, I have this here, whether or not this is necessary. Containers shall be returned to the storage area promptly after they are emptied by the waste hauler. So, you know, the containers will be brought all the way to the street, and then the tenants have to then bring them back. And so, you know, if we like this statement, can keep it or modify it. All exterior lighting will be downcast and shielded. And then the applicant shall install bollards in the front of the building along Main Street. And again, this could be, you know, softened or changed or removed.
So number 10, I think I would change the word promptly to within 24 hours.
All right.
Just if I'm a tenant and I'm at work during the day when they take the trash.
Right. Yeah, I think, yeah, promptly would mean what? A day, 2 days? What does promptly mean? 2 hours?
Well, something like, you know.
No, I think this is better to have like an actual metric.
Yeah, and nobody knows exactly when the waste hauler showed up. We know what day it was, so that you've really probably got 36 hours by the time it.
Right.
Anyway, and then the last one. Well, I see Bruce's hand. Go ahead, Bruce.
I was going to suggest that we say, to the extent that the Jersey barrier intrudes upon the applicant's property, the applicant shall work with the town to install bollards or suitable or similar in front of the building. In other words, we can fold in the fact that unless at least some part of the concrete barrier is on the applicant's land, we can't obligate them to do anything about this. And the applicant has suggested something other than bollards, which seems to be an agreeable solution, planter box. So
I'm gonna say
2
Bollards
Or-
or another barrier or another similar barrier, similarly protective or something.
yeah.
Yeah. That works for me.
Mhm.
So that language does not obligate them to do anything.
No.
Yeah.
And it sounds like I mean, so the survey doesn't show anything about the barrier, is that correct?
Right. It shows that there's a, you know, at one corner 12.5 feet and then 13 feet on the other to the right of way. It doesn't show any sidewalk markings or where that actually is. So
I would change the applicant may to applicant shall, and then we can decide whether we want to qualify this about whether the barrier is on any of the barriers on the applicant's property or not. But you can say shall work with the town and to install bollards. I think may is too soft. I think shall is better. And but this does presume an outcome.
I'm going to call Fred. Do you have a comment about this particular condition?
No, I have something about trash, but I'll wait until we get off
Okay,
the
all
barrier.
right, all right. Well, does anybody else have a feeling about this? I'm feeling like I'm disappointed that we don't know where this bollard or where the Jersey barrier is, and whether it's on private property or public property. And so I'm having a hard time feeling like I can,
Right on the curb.
like I should, you know, obligate the owner to do anything if it's not on their property. Jesse?
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I mean, if this is
It's pretty close.
conditions.
I'm sorry, Nick, what did you say?
Yes, hi. I wanted to say it's below the curb. So I think it's town property.
So you're
Not
saying it's on the pavement of the roadway?
Yes, it's not on the sidewalk. It's on the pavement on the
Are you
roadway.
sure about that?
Oh, is it
No,
on the,
It's
oh,
on the sidewalk.
oh, it is on the sidewalk.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
sorry.
close- It's like right by the.
Right,
curb
right near the curb.
with the
Okay, so
Yeah,
it's on the
it's-
on the sidewalk,
By the curb.
just right near the curb.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, I think 12 is right. It's a, you know, we could call it a, it's not, you know, a obligatory condition, but I think, you know, the applicants mentioned an intention and we could continue to work with them to see if it's possible. I don't, if
Well, that
want,
means we don't
if
need
we
to
want to say
condition
shall
it.
here, we could change may to shall. I don't, it's up to the board.
yeah, I mean, I mean, that obligates them to work with the town, but not necessarily to result in anything.
Yeah.
All right, well,
If I can finish my sentence, I agree with what you said before, Doug. If we're not sure they're responsible for it, I don't know why we put it in this document.
yeah. Are there any board members who particularly want it in our conditions?
Well, uh, if it's on their property, then it should be a real condition that uses the verb shall. And if it's not on their property, then item 12 is can go away. And so I would phrase item 12 such that it is mandatory if and only if the Jersey barrier is on their property. Is that a way to?
So are we then obligating another survey? You know, get a surveyor back out there and determine exactly where the property line is?
Well, I would think it would be simpler than that, but
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we know the distances, so,
I mean, you mentioned like 12 feet from was it from the face of the building or?
so here's the survey. And so, it's 12.8 feet here and 13.5 feet, on this side, but what the survey doesn't show is, where is the, right, where's the curb line, and so,
Well, where's the 12.5 feet measured from? The face of the building?
right,
So it would be easy enough to get out there with a tape measure
it would be.
and see if it touched the barrier or not.
Right, so what happens is, on the street, it does something like this, and then it curves in for parking in front, and the Jersey barrier, is like here, and it may be that when the town created parking in front, that this curb is actually on private property for, in front of this building.
Mhm. Okay, well, let's see. Fred, I'm going to assume you're still waiting to talk about trash. So Angus, do you have anything to talk about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think this doesn't seem like the most important thing for us to be focusing on this property. I think that the owner has expressed an interest in working with the business improvement district, and it's not going to happen without town or business improvement district involvement. And now it's on the town planning department's radar. So I think this is something that, we could work on down the road, but it doesn't seem necessary to attach as a condition for this property.
Okay, so that's at least three people who've expressed a desire to just remove the condition. Anybody object to removing it? Going once, going twice. All right. Nate? Sounds like we'll take it away. All right. Fred, you had a comment on another topic.
Yeah, on trash. Most of the trash hauling services, I think, offer something. I know my trash hauler, which I think may be the same one that they use, offers driveway service for a little more money, which I always subscribe to. And they back or position a trash truck near it, and then their employees go out and up the driveway and roll the trash bins out to the truck, dump it, and then return the trash bins to the point of origination. And this is not an onerous charge, and I think it's practical, and it might be a way to approach this.
All right, that's a good suggestion. Um,
Yeah, so the condition doesn't say who would return them.
right, I think
In the management plan, they said the tenants, but it could be anyone at this point.
Right, the language wouldn't need to change if they decided to do that. Rula, I saw your hand for a moment.
Yes, yes. I had asked Republic Services about that. They told me that they do not that their drivers do not go out to get the trash.
Okay. And have you had good luck with your tenants returning the toters to their storage location?
Yes.
Okay. Is that a condition of your lease?
Yes, it's in the lease. Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Fred, you all right with that, the way it stands?
Yeah, I'm not going to press it.
Okay. All right. Any further comments from the board? So
There
we've
is-
gone through the findings, we've gone through the conditions. Nate,
Yeah.
are there,
There's another set.
yeah, I was gonna say, aren't there earlier conditions we need to be changing?
I think So there's a set of findings and conditions for the site plan review and then findings for the special permit. So I was gonna just get those
Okay,
visible as well. I'm not sure why,
we saw the other one for a moment there.
oh, you did, okay, yeah, I guess yeah. I have too many windows open, I didn't see it.
Yeah, you had it. There it is. There
Alright,
it is.
there it is. All right, so the findings, so this is the special permit, as Bruce asked, you know, why is it a special permit? And you're right, it is because there is an existing permit and it's a non-conforming building. And previously it was permitted, the mixed-use building was permitted by a special permit. So the finding would be that the project complies with the relevant criteria of 3.325 and 9.22, and as amendment to the ZBA special permit 1991-45 to modify a non-conforming structure to continue to be used as a mixed-use building. There's, you know, these kind of boilerplate conditions up front, just so it's here too as well, built substantially in accordance with the plans, and any changes would come back to the board. And then condition 3 is the following conditions of the 1991 permit would be amended as follows. And there's 9 conditions to this permit. So condition 1 is unchanged. There shall be one commercial use only on the first floor. Condition 2 has been modified, so the number of cars parked in the rear of the parking lot shall be limited to 4, and 1 parking space shall be located next to the building in the alley, which shall not block vehicular access to the rear parking area or block the entrance into the building. So before this had, you know, there was a different site plan, so this had different numbers parked in the rear of the building. Condition 3, there shall be 5 parking spaces numbered and assigned to residents. And so there used to be 8 spaces, so now it says 5. It's been cleaned up, the condition. Condition 4, remove it and in its entirety. So it says,
Nate, if I may interrupt, this is now inconsistent. Condition 3, the assigned to residents was deleted from the conditions in the last, I think we simply said that the spaces had to be delineated.
I think we had also, yeah.
We didn't ask that they be numbered and assigned.
I think this is saying it's assigned to residents. It's not being numbered, you know, physically as with a sign or marking.
Oh, okay, understood.
You know, and if we think it's somewhat confusing, we could modify that. Condition 4, space.
Nate, I'm sorry.
Get rid of the numbered.
I'm a little bit confused why we're limiting the number of cars to 4 when there are 5 parking spaces.
4 in the rear of the lot, and then 1 along the next to the building for a total of 5.
So condition 2, does it control the number of parking spaces in the rear of the building or the number of cars that are parked in the rear of the building?
We could parking spaces, right?
So I think that would be clearer.
Yeah.
Okay, that now I'm good.
All right. Condition 4 is removing, so it said the part number space 9 on the previous plan is a long-term residential or commercial space. Condition 5, a copy of the rental agreement for residential tenants indicating that 5 cars may be parked shall be on file with the planning department. So we'd asked, typically we used to ask for some agreements. We could remove it or keep this. We asked for a copy as part of this application of the rental agreement. Condition 6, to remove it, saying that they'd have an agreement next door with which was Fenton's to allow the shared driveway. So that's something usually between private properties, and it's been allowed for a number of years. Number 7, there's no change, so no trucks in the parking area with the exception of the trash hauler. Remove condition 8, that the upper story windows on the west side be translucent, and remove number 9, that the second story apartments shall be built according to the plans approved in 1991. So that's now changed.
So for condition 7, if they have a tenant who drives a Ford Maverick, little pickup truck, are they allowed to park here or not?
That's a good question. Is that just a passenger vehicle? You know, I guess we don't really.
Yeah,
have a truck
yeah,
very
I mean, you know, everybody has pickup trucks these days, and
So we
if-
could remove the.
I assume you mean, you know, a truck that's larger than, I don't know, 12,000 gross vehicle weight or something like that.
I mean, we could say no. I think when this was written, it was knowing that there would be a restaurant here. So I think they were probably implying like commercial trucks. I'm not sure it's even necessary. You know, we could
Yeah,
qualify and say no.
is there a life safety potential risk if there's a truck parked and the fire department can't get past or something?
I think that was probably the genesis of it. You know, so here's space one, and then there's still space to pass by the building and get a fire truck, you know, at least into this area if needed. I think the concern at one point was cars used to park over here back in the 90s against this building. And so I think the worry was that if you had bigger vehicles parking there, there would be, you know, access would be impeded to get back here.
Well, why don't we just say that the 9-foot wide right-of-way from the front to the back of the property shall be maintained in a clear, you know, unobstructed condition or something.
Right.
So we don't care what kind of vehicle it is that's in the way.
Yeah.
Fred and then Angus.
Yeah, condition 3, I think, can be simply deleted now. Or, yeah, because condition 2 covers it, I think.
Nate, is that condition changing or is that new?
It was changing, so I could add what you know, we could just say, you know, this is essentially the condition 3 on the previous permit. I could go look at it. It had something about the total number of parking spaces on the property, you know, whereas condition 2 described them a little bit. Condition 3 then kind of just summarized it. It was redundant in the first permit, so I was just keeping the same structure, but we could just say remove condition and
no change, yeah, or remove condition.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And then Angus, I'm sorry, go ahead, Nate.
Oh, I thought Fred's hand's still up. I don't know, Fred, if you still had other comments.
On condition 2, I think for clarity, on the second line, I would say one additional space.
All right.
And then you can say these, maybe with a separate sentence, these spaces shall not block vehicular act, or this space. Oh yeah, the space on the side of the building shall not block vehicular access.
Right. All right.
Doug, if I can interrupt, you could simply make that easier by saying which shall not.
Oh, yeah, just a continuation of the previous sentence, Bruce, you mean?
Yes, you save yourself a whole bunch of words.
Yeah.
Shall not.
Yep, there we go.
All right.
Thank you, Bruce and Fred. Fred, do you have anything else?
No, I'm good.
All right.
I'm just going back to number 7. Sorry, I was going to say just remove condition.
Okay.
I just want to
Yeah,
follow.
because we've kind of covered it in number 3.
Yeah.
All right, Angus. Oops.
That's what I was going to say.
Okay. All right. All right. So that's the special permit findings and conditions. And I assume, Nate, you'll go ahead and put in the original language on these remove condition.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So these, like for this one, 4, this, you know, is the original condition.
Yep.
I'll just put it in here. I just highlighted it.
Mhm.
Great.
And here, I'm just, I like that. All right.
Nate, for clarity, would it be better to say remove original condition or prior condition?
Well, it
Above it says here, sorry, the following conditions of the permit which
Oh.
is amended.
Never mind.
All right, Bruce.
I was going to move approval.
Mm.
All right, so we would have the finding, we have the site plan, and we have the special permit. We need to approve the findings. We need to approve the conditions, and we
And
need to close the
public
the
hearing,
joint public hearing.
the joint public hearing. So moved.
All right, Angus.
Second.
All right. Any further comments? All right. All right, we'll go ahead and vote. This time starting with Jera.
Could we, given my late arrival, could we perhaps vote in the other direction?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
We'll start with Bruce.
I'm an aye.
Thank you. Fred,
Aye.
Angus,
Aye.
Jesse,
Aye.
Jera,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. That's 6 in favor, 1 absent. The motion carries. The hearing is closed. The 2 permits are approved. So Rula and company, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
guys.
Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay. Time is 7:37. And our next item on the agenda is a public meeting concerning the East Amherst Local Historic District proposal. Review and discuss the preliminary study report for a possible East Amherst Local Historic District. And Nate, do we have anybody from the local historic district other than Bruce to present this?
Yeah, if you want to raise your hand, I know there's probably a few people in the audience. And I would introduce my colleague Walker Powell. She's a planner with the town, and she, she works with the Historical Commission and Local Historic District Commission, among other things. I'll just say quickly that, this is just a public meeting. There's no requirement for a public hearing to review the preliminary study report. And so, at tonight's meeting, and if after the planning board members have questions, you can send them to staff, myself and Walker. And so really the idea would be, if the planning board has something, there's a chance for a final report that would be submitted to the Massachusetts Historical Commission if this moves forward. And so any like changes or concerns or something that would be addressed in the final report. And so this is really a chance for the planning board to ask questions or provide comments. And so the preliminary study report's been submitted to the Massachusetts Historical Commission, and then now it's being reviewed by the planning board. And so like I said, there can be follow-up if we need it.
Okay. And do any of our guests want to make an initial presentation?
Chris Skelly has a presentation that he was going to give. He is the consultant we've been working with to come up with the inventory forms and the study report. So he has the most information of all of us.
But before he does, could.
Certainly, Steve, go ahead.
Yes, I'm the vice chair, and before Chris does his PowerPoint presentation, I just wanted to give a little preamble. Have you guys received the study report, and have you?
We had a link to it in our packet, and
okay,
so
and
we were able to open it and look at it online.
Okay, then I won't bore you with the introduction. I just wanted to say that this is not a mission creep for the LHDC. This was done at the suggestion of town manager Paul Bockelman, because this is the oldest area of Amherst. And I just wanted to, before Chris goes on, to just say we're not NIMBYs. None of the people on our commission live in this area. And, so we're not doing that. And when Chris does his report, there's one structure that is our poster child for how an LHD should work, and I'll rejoin the conversation at that time. And so with that, I'll let Chris take the floor, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Go ahead, Chris.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to try to share screen here.
We can see your screen.
Excellent. All right.
And you could enlarge that, I suspect, if you wanted to go to the slideshow setting.
Well, I am in.
There you go. Perfect.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'm not sure what the delay was then. Okay. All right. So happy to be here. Happy to present this district to all of you on the planning board. And just to follow up on what Nate said, yeah, in terms of this process, it isn't a public hearing process with the planning board. As Nate said, this is a process of the state law, which is not Mass General Law 40A, which you work with. This is Mass General Law Chapter 40C, the Local Historic Districts Act. And that law says that this preliminary study report has to be sent to the Massachusetts Historical Commission, and it has to be sent to the local planning board. Yeah, it's your chance to make some recommendations if you would like. It's similar to the way that the Massachusetts Historical Commission handles their reviews. The Massachusetts Historical Commission does not have the ability to require any changes to the study report. It's just a matter of a process of seeking their input. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the East Amherst Local Historic District and a little background on what local historic districts are. So East Amherst is currently on the National Register of Historic Places. So right now it's already a National Register district, also known as a historic district. So it is a historic district currently, but importantly, it's not a local historic district. And National Register districts are primarily an honorary designation. The local historic districts, the ones that are created through local government, are established through your local elected officials. And these kinds of historic districts, unlike the National Register districts, are very effective at protecting historic resources. So the typical projects that get reviewed in a local historic district, established through city town ordinance, alterations to buildings, alterations to structures, demolitions, additions, new buildings, new structures, all those kind of things are typically reviewed in a local historic district. All depends a little bit on how the ordinance is written, but that's basically the kinds of things that get reviewed in a local historic district. Importantly, it is only what's visible from the public way. That's it. You're only reviewing things that are from the public, that you can see from the public way. There's already two local historic districts in Amherst, the Dickinson Local Historic District and then the North Prospect Lincoln Sunset Local Historic District. So other areas of Amherst, such as East Amherst, have very, very little protection from alterations, demolitions, and incompatible development. The town has a demolition delay ordinance, but these properties outside of these districts are really not well protected at all. This is the property that Steve had mentioned here. So as I understand it, this building within the North Prospect Lincoln Sunset Local Historic District had reached a point where saving the building just wasn't feasible any longer. By having a local historic district in place here, the new construction met the expectations of the neighborhood because it had a review through the local historic district commission. But without that local historic district in place on McClellan Street, the replacement could have been a real substantial concern for the whole neighborhood.
Okay, Chris, I
Yeah,
see
yeah,
Steve's.
looks like Steve wants
Yeah,
to.
I just wanted to interject here. This property came before the local historic district in October of 2024. There was no objections because it was appropriate in scale and design to the rest of the neighborhood. And it was immediately at that meeting given a certificate of appropriateness. Within 6 months, the building was up, and now it is a student rental, yet less, a year later. So the point is that an LHD does not impede development, and it doesn't impede student rentals. So that was the point that I wanted to make. And this is our poster child. This is the way it's supposed to work. Okay, Chris, back to you.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Steve. All right, so East Amherst is under consideration for one of these local historic districts, and fittingly so, because it contains many early intact properties that really tell the early history of Amherst as a whole and its growth and development over time. My role as the consultant on this project was to do a lot of the updating the research on properties within the district. So basically the research that was done on these properties in the area in the past was done in the 1980s. So well over 40 years old now, well out of date. Lots of times information is missing, as you can see right here. Second page about architectural significance or historical significance. This form here on this property done in 1982, that information is completely missing entirely. So other examples of this were it's just very minimal description of the historical narrative and maybe little or no description of the architectural significance as well. So my role was to try to update a lot of the background information here. So to come up with updates of these forms where you're putting in a better up-to-date photograph, better map, better information in terms of historic names and dates of construction, things like that. And then really fill in some of those gaps in terms of the architectural descriptions and the historical narratives. And then when I could, where it made sense, I added in some extra photos as well. So to get some extra oblique images or close-ups or something like that for the properties. So I did this by going through the deeds as much as I could. So wherever it was manageable to research the deeds, I would do that. And deeds can be pretty amazing to look through and see that record of ownership. Really interesting in terms of some of the descriptions of the properties that you see, some of the talk about the water access and the springs that were there, how they were accessing drinking water. Definitely lots of descriptions about not only property lines that reference a tree. There was one property line that referenced a dead tree, so a stump. So pretty interesting to read all these things. Some of these I was able to go right back into the 1840s. Sometimes the deeds get so complicated with different subdivisions and lots of other things taking place. I couldn't go back that far, but it went back as far as was reasonably possible to do it.
Chris, I see
yes.
Fred's hand up. Fred's
got a question. Okay.
Fred, you're still muted.
Yeah, there it goes. I have a question about how you made the determination how far west to extend this up Main Street. I'm thinking of Tullio Inglesi's architect studio, which was an old church. And then across the street from that, on the corner of North Whitney Street, was the domicile of Simon W. Whitney, who laid out the first part of that street, which if you go up a little ways, that's where I live. But I've done a lot of the research on all the deeds in that area, and in terms of age and some significance, I'm thinking that I'm wondering if you went far enough west.
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. I wonder if we could just take that one at the end, just because it's a general question about the boundary. So well, I think we'll have some time at the end to answer those
Sure.
questions. Okay.
All right, Chris, Steve raised his hand. Steve, did you want to say something or no? Okay, never mind. Go ahead, Chris.
All right.
Let's try to let you finish your presentation and then we'll take questions.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right. Besides deeds, which are great, but they don't really give you a whole lot of information in terms of the interesting aspects of the property. They trace the ownership, of course, but they don't necessarily trace some of the more interesting aspects of who lived there and what kind of occupations did they have, what kind of lives did they live. Instead of the owner, it's often more interesting to think about all the other people that lived in the house too. So one of the other sources of information of documentary research that we use are these old atlases from the 1800s. So there's one from 1860, I think, for Amherst, and then it's 1873, and that can really help with some of the footprints, dates, and ownership, and also some of the uses that were taking place there. So you might see some of the occupations, businesses, and things that are on these maps. And then there's these things called directories, which are really interesting. I kind of like to think of these as a telephone book before there even were telephones. It's basically a listing of the residents of Amherst, where they lived and what their occupations were. It never really has street addresses and numbers and things like that, because early on they didn't really have that. This early one, this directory right here, is actually from 1869. And so it has an alphabetical list of residents in Amherst, and usually their occupations, and sometimes it'll give you a sense of where they are, at least the street anyway, for their location. So that's great for getting a lot of the occupations there. I also use things like census records, and all kinds of other documentary sources to learn more about the people that lived in these houses. This one was interesting right here, just with the property on Main Street. Learning about this property, that it was almost demolished, and it's such an iconic property on Main Street now. But yeah, almost demolished. It was in really poor condition, and only because in the 1980s somebody came forward and decided to restore that building. So professional office space now, but nearly lost. The school building was really interesting. That's on Southeast Street. See the photo of the children here in front of the school, the East Street School, which it was known at the time, in 1928. Wonderful, lots of records available at the Jones Library and the archives there. So that's where this photo came from. And I would say that the East Amherst section of Amherst is notably significant for its intact collection of buildings and landscapes that convey the early history and development of Amherst. The buildings and landscapes found in East Amherst reflect that commerce, occupations, industries, and institutions that took place during the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries. And so that's why this area was put on the National Register back in 1986. Several houses in East Amherst actually date from the early Amherst settlement. They include the Noah Dickinson House at 743 Main Street and the Daniel Kellogg House at 76 Northeast Street. And the Noah Dickinson House dates from 1754 and the Daniel Kellogg House from 1758. And just remarkably intact properties there. This is certainly an interesting one as well. The Baggs Tavern at 6 Southeast Street, also dating from this period. It was operated as a tavern by John Baggs during the first half of the 1800s. And then in 1925, a restoration effort was undertaken to return the building to its tavern appearance. In early, over 100 years ago, there was a museum and an antique shop that was in this building. It changed again and became housing. And then, unfortunately, in the 1970s, a horrible fire caused extensive damage to this building. And like the other building that I just showed you, on Main Street, this building was vacant, very, very poor condition, open to the weather, and was likely going to be demolished. Demolition seemed like the most likely outcome. But a new owner came forward, purchased the property, and chose to restore the building. And I like this. I love this newspaper article that I found in the collection at Jones Library Archives. Is that there they are? There's the new owner accepting a preservation award from the Amherst Historical Commission. This one right here is the Ebenezer Mattoon House at 58 Southeast Street and dates from 1782. And the building was constructed by Ebenezer Mattoon following his extensive experience in the Revolutionary War. From its earliest European settlement to the mid-19th century, East Amherst was really the institutional and residential hub of Amherst. The primary early occupation was farming with crops, including hay and grain and apples. And at the center of the community was a second congregational church. So you could think of East Amherst as really where the center of activity was in Amherst. And it wasn't until later that the downtown Amherst really developed further west. By 1783, the Congregational Church was constructed here in East Amherst. However, that building got dismantled, and a new, larger second Congregational Church was completed in 1839 to accommodate the many new arrivals to the village. And the building at 742 Main Street, now the Jewish community of Amherst, certainly remains a prominent focal point at the center of the East Amherst village with its prominent spire. Many homes in East Amherst were constructed during the middle of the 1800s, and really have this style right here. So the area grew in prosperity, especially during that time. And these examples of Greek Revival architecture really demonstrate that level of development that was all taking place around the mid 1800s. One of the interesting things about East Amherst to me is seeing the distinctions between the homes in Amherst. So these properties on Main Street tell two very different stories. On the left, it's a story of wealth and the funds that were necessary to construct this dwelling. And then on the right, you see the workers' housing. So very, very, very clearly demonstrating the workers' housing here for the many people that were employed in manufacturing and the trades in East Amherst. So there's a big straw hat manufacturing area. So this is one of the places that the workers were residing. I think in getting to know East Amherst has a particularly impressive collection of brick homes dating from the early 1800s. in mid 1800s. Some of the examples shown here, really excellent, intact examples. So we can definitely find buildings in East Amherst that have been altered over the decades. Some have been covered in asbestos siding or vinyl siding. Some have porches that have been enclosed. At that former school, you can see that front entrance there, altered by enclosing the recessed entryway, removing the stairs that were there at one time. Yet, even with these alterations, I think these buildings really tell a really important story about East Amherst and that growth and development for the town as a whole. So I am happy to take some questions, or Steve could answer some questions as well, but happy to hear what you'd like to offer.
All right, thank you, Chris. Steve, go ahead.
Yes, in answer to the question about the boundaries, we tried to stick to the National Registry District as closely as we could. Actually, staff at the planning department requested us to enlarge the district, and we did include 3 houses on Salem. And actually, Nate would like us to include more on Spalding and more on Salem. But like I said, in terms of trying to defend the LHD, we tried to, like the Dickinson district is the National Registry District. So we tried to stick as closely as we could to the National Registry District. In terms of like, you know, we looked at houses on Spalding and on Salem and on Whitney. Those are all, you know, worthy of LHDs, but our feeling is that they could form their, you know, in the future, form their own study committees and create, you know, an additional LHD if that, you know, comes to pass. The real thing is, you know, if you look at these buildings, like, you know, the Bags Tavern, right now, if somebody wants to demolish it, the historical commission can delay it for a year, but then there's nothing to stop it from being demolished. And this would stop that. In addition, I just wanted to point out that this is the gateway to our new elementary school. So I think it behooves us, you know, to keep that in consideration as well. And again, this is not about impeding development. It's basically about preserving our town's unique legacy.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Jesse?
Thanks, Chris and Steve, for the presentation. One comment, one question. Comment is also about the link that you provided us to the web-based version of this that had a map where you could click on the homes, and whoever made that, it's really fun and I really enjoyed it. No,
Walker made that.
Oh, it's great. Is there one for the other districts in town? I'd love to see those also. That's a side note.
Not yet, but I can get on that.
Yeah, I mean, I really think it's fantastic and they should be spread around. It's a really fun way to see the town.
Thank you.
My question is about, I guess, an LHD, the interaction of an LHD and then a potential overlay zone. And I'm not sure who here will know this answer, but how does that work? So if we, for example, have an overlay plan for overlapping part of a LHD, does then every project, including what's allowed in the overlay, then also go to the LHD or to the commission for appropriateness? Maybe somebody just tell me about how that works.
So Jesse, any project in the LHD would be subject to their review, and regardless of how the zoning changes over time.
Okay.
Yeah, just quickly to jump in. So a local historic district isn't zoning.
Right.
You know, it's a regulatory bylaw as part of the town's general bylaws. So it's not zoning. So, you know, it's really about the appearance and aesthetic of the built environment where, you know, zoning's a land use. It gets into some other things as well. But in East Amherst, for instance, if this were in place and we had an overlay, then, you know, right, any regulations in place, whether it's local historic district, conservation commission, zoning, you know, they're all, you know, layers that are part of a permit process on a property. So, you know, if that were the case, you know, I'd say if there was, say, a site plan review and there's a local historic district, you know, typically a staff will work with an applicant to try to have something be, you know, either sequential in permitting or, you know, simultaneous. So, you know, we just saw 363 Main Street, that's in a local historic district. So that went first to the local historic district a while ago. there weren't too many exterior changes or a few, and then it came to the planning board. And so, the applicant knew what the permit process was, but, that's an example of something that went through local historic district, and then it came to the planning board.
Great, thank you.
But so Nate, I could imagine a situation where, say, the planning board and the council approved a zoning change, say, for allowing much bigger buildings in a local historic district, and at which point you would have zoning allowing buildings that probably would be considered incompatible with the scale of the buildings in the local historic district. Is that, would you have a situation where the two sides were in conflict?
Thank you for asking my actual question, Doug.
Yeah, I mean, I think there could be. So some of it is, zoning will give you a minimum or a maximum of what's allowed. It doesn't necessarily say what's appropriate, right? So that's what a local historic district would do. So if we say that you can have a 50% lot coverage or building coverage and a 90% lot coverage, well, according to zoning, you could have 90% of your lot be covered in building and pavement, and you could have 50% of it be a big building. And is that really the best development approach? And so I think the two can work together. There's a project on 180 Fearing, the corner of Sunset and Fearing, where there's 17 units that came before the local historic district over, I think it's 6 different buildings with 3 to 4 units, maybe 2 to 4 units in each building. So it's kind of duplex, a townhouse style. It went to the zoning board in the local historic district. I think it worked really well. The local historic district, when it was first proposed, they had bigger buildings, taller, more massive. And they said, well, could you break down the mass a little bit, change the facades, have a little bit of more articulation facing the street? It's only what's visible from the public way. And so it's something that the applicant, did. And I think, a lot of people say it's a nice project as well. And so, yeah, I think it's a balance of, if we think East Amherst is a resource for both current economic development and as a historic resource, we should be considerate of, okay, what do we want the zoning to be here? Are we going to really say 6 stories, or are we going to say 3 with maybe a 4th under the roof, or maybe a 4th that step back or behind? And so I think that they can work together. I think it's sometimes it takes a little bit more forethought and discussions with an applicant and the permitting boards to get there, but I don't necessarily see them as incompatible. I think sometimes they can have kind of maybe different goals, and then you just have to work to get there.
All right, thank you. All right, so we've got 4 more hands here. It looks like we've got lots of interest in this topic. Fred, go ahead.
Well, I'm looking at the buildings that are on the screen right now. And I'm thinking about the 5 of the 7 southerly buildings on North Whitney Street easily match up. They're not brick, but other than not being brick, they match up with what's on the screen here. And having lived in this area for now 54 years, I've had occasion to do an extensive amount of research, which I'm happy to share. But anyway, I think we may be missing something by stopping that district, or else maybe we need to look at an additional district.
All right, thank you, Fred. Angus?
Yeah, this is wonderful work. I mean, it's incredibly beautifully presented. It's clear that the commission has really thought hard about this and thought about how to preserve a lot of these buildings with care and love. I guess I have a couple of things that I want to share, and then maybe 1 or 2 questions. One thing that I'll just note as we're talking about, zoning and how this would kind of overlay, it's not a zoning overlay, but how this historic district would interface with the zoning. I mean, the region that we're talking about here has like 5 different zoning designations. So it's a business village center, it's a residential village center, it's general residential, it's neighborhood residential. So one thing that I'm just thinking about is I don't know if we have a full sense of what we as a planning board want to do with this major intersection of roads in our town. And it seems like we're trying to do a number of different things at the same time. That's not necessarily directly related to this historic district question. That's a zoning question, but I think there maybe is some relationship in terms of what are we wanting to do with this particular part of our town. The question that I have, based on the map, there are it seems like within the historic district, there are at least 2 apartment complexes that are included. They are not listed in the wonderful, guide with individual properties, but it's labeled as East Amherst Village on Google Maps, and then there's another property with about 6. It looks like maybe 6 connected buildings right below that. These are both off of Northeast Street, and I guess I'm just wondering, why is this historic district including those properties, which, at least based on my looking at them, don't seem to have a whole lot of historic value. I understand the buildings on either side of them do.
All right. Let's see.
I can,
Chris,
I
do you
can,
have
I
on
can
it?
work on that, but Steve has his hand up as well. I don't know if you wanted to
Okay.
say something. but
We
I
can
answer.
we can both answer that. Every local historic district has, Chris is gonna kill me for my terminology, but they're known as non-conforming properties or intrusions, whether it's a national district or local one. And, there's exceptions for every local historic district has intrusions and non-conforming properties. It's a matter of continuity. In terms of the boundaries, we love, we are very cognizant that there's a lot of pushback against local historic districts as being elitist, which is why we've been very, tried to keep it restricted to the National Registry District. Again, I have to emphasize, this was done not, this is no mission creep. This is not us trying to expand our powers. This was something that was suggested to us by the town manager. And like I said, none of us live in this district. This is the oldest part of our town. And in terms of zoning, this is there, we have ADU by right now. So the local historic district isn't going to get in the way of that. But so anyway, I hope that answers some of your questions. Chris, if you want to, Chris was with the Massachusetts Historical Commission, and he knows, he's the expert on this, and he can answer a lot better than me.
Chris, you want to add to that?
Yeah, yes. So your question about the properties that were far more recent properties, that they certainly
Well,
it's
it's not so much. I know that there are several houses on there that are built in the 1950s that are great examples of ranch style homes. It's not so much about those, is that there are 2 apartment complexes that are, one of them is on the edge of the historic district on the north side and includes, it looks like 6 different buildings. And then the other one is, it looks like 3 properties below that. So it's parcel 58 and 24 on the map. Both of those, I guess I'm just wondering, doesn't seem like it would be that hard to cut them out of the historic district. And they don't seem to be I mean, they are non-compliant, but in addition, those are major sources of housing, I would think.
Yeah, so I couldn't go to a local historic district anywhere in the state and not see properties that are more recent that aren't going to have the level of significance of the earlier properties. So that's going to be true. Salem, Boston, any place. So it's very common that there's going to be more recent properties included within a local historic district. There's nothing in the historic district that bylaw that's going to require that to be any more historic in the future. So the way it is right now is the way that it can remain. One of the benefits is that you still, with a local historic district, have that chance to do design review over what might be go up in its place in the future. So it's the same reason why I might say a vacant lot. I think there's some vacant property within this district as well. And the benefit of including vacant property within the district is that you have design review capabilities over what's going to get put up in its place, even though what's there right now, it's just vacant. There's no significance there. But you don't know what might get proposed in the future. And this way, you can really be assured that whatever's going to go up is going to be compatible with the existing district.
All right, thank you. Steve, I see your hand up again. I'm going to let you go.
Sorry to keep talking. These boundaries are not fixed in stone, and we can certainly revisit these large complexes. And again, as I've stated, the planning department, and Nate in particular, wants us to include other structures that abut the National Registry District. So these are not fixed in stone and can be revisited.
All right, thank you. Bruce, you're next. And then Jara.
I think I'm going to speak as a representative of the Historic Commission. And I'm going to say something that hasn't been said before, but it's important from my point of view. Historic Commission has 7 commissioners. 5 of them are residents within the districts. 2 of them one of them is me as an architect, or supposedly an architect. I'm a retired architect, but the structure of the commission is that it should have some with an architectural professional background, and the 7th member has a real estate background. When I was asked 7 or 8 years ago to be on this commission, I said, I will agree to be appointed, or I'll put myself forward, but you have to understand, and I've said this every time, that and these photographs here help me here. These districts have buildings from the 17th, 18th, 19th, maybe not the 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries, and they're rich for that. And so we've got quite an age range in these districts. And I maintained upon my interview that you do not expect me to disallow the 21st century to have part of this narrative as well. So put yourself forward 100 years from now. This district should have exemplary buildings from the 20th and the 21st century as well. So Steve put up that picture of a building on McClellan that was demolished and it was rebuilt, and it was rebuilt to look like it was 100 years old. I probably wouldn't have objected to that. I probably would have supported that certificate of appropriateness. I happened to be in Australia at the time, so I wasn't actually one of the few meetings I've missed. But I wouldn't object to a rather well-designed, and certainly not to an especially well-designed modern building there. I want to make it very clear that at least one member of this commission does not believe that buildings in a historic district should look like the other buildings in the historic district. I don't believe that historic districts should, or commissions should set out to freeze these districts as frozen in time. There should be a narrative, and that narrative should continue, and it should have, the narrative should include the story of today and tomorrow as well as yesterday. And I think I've been very clear about that. Now, I'm not sure whether I would be able to convince all of my, or a sufficient number of my commission colleagues, but I would be, and indeed are very open to well-designed buildings, regardless of whether they're pieces of work that was approved on McClellan Street, or whether they would be a modern, elegant steel, concrete, wire, cardboard, whatever the hell it is. If it's well designed, we have the ability to review it and give it a certificate of appropriateness, and that's what we do. We judge appropriateness, and so I think it's important to recognize that these districts are really looking at appropriateness, and that can be defined quite widely. We don't yet have design standards. We're working on that. So there are design standards, but from my view, design standards, the standard is good design. The standard is good design. So these things, historic districts are trying to certainly preserve what's there. We care about what's there, but we also care about what's going there in the future. I may be an outlier opinion on this, but that's the way I think. That's the way I've always think, and that's the way I've argued about how this commission should view buildings and projects and propositions that come before it.
All right, thanks, Bruce. Chiara?
Well, I can let Steve jump in.
I'm sorry to keep jumping in. A couple things to address what Bruce just said. Amherst College does a great job of combining new design that's compatible with old design. I don't know. I wish I had the actual addresses. Maybe Chris can correct me. You know that church, next to where the copy center used to be on Pleasant Street?
The Peter Pan building.
Which one?
I call it the Peter
Baptist
Pan
Church.
building.
Yeah. Okay. Well, they did an addition in the back that is a modern building, but it's the same scale and it complements it. There's another building down on Pleasant Street across Route 9. And they just did another addition, Amherst College. They do really great stuff. It's, new materials, but it's of appropriate scale and it complements the building. So we're certainly not trying to freeze everything in amber. What we are trying to do is preserve the buildings, these historic buildings from being destroyed. That is one of the functions. And then also there's the function of, new buildings. But those are two different things. And in terms of design standards, we actually have applied for a CPA grant to hire Chris to give us design standards. So it won't be so confusing and arbitrary.
All right, thanks, Steve. Chris, you have your hand up, and I guess I'll let you go, and then Jara.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Just following up on Bruce's comments. Bruce, you make some excellent points. Definitely, and I would agree in terms of this on a scale of replication. That property on McClellan definitely trended towards the replication of a historic property, but there's plenty of room for in local historic districts for much more contemporary design features. We like to use the term compatible yet differentiated is often what we would like to see within a local historic district, so that it speaks to our present day, but also really can be compatible with its surroundings as well. I would say that a lot of that comes down to the community standard. What does the community want? So some communities may go a little bit more. They want a little bit more replication. And some communities are going to be far more interested in pushing that, still having compatibility, but having lots more design solutions that really speak to the present day. As Steve said, the best way to really think about that is having good design guidelines that cover things like new construction, so that all those points can come across easily.
All right, thank you. Jara, go ahead.
Thank you. I want to say, Steve, thank you for bringing this to us. Chris, thank you for the great presentation and for fielding all of our questions. And Bruce, I also want to say I appreciate your particular perspective on this, presenting a spectrum, a story over time of all the different stages of architecture that we've experienced, and your, I think, unfortunately, rather unique perspective of being in favor of good design that's compatible, but not necessarily just a replication of existing structures. I worry that while there is clearly no desire to diminish, opportunities for needed like redevelopment or new construction on vacant lots or whatever the case may be, making this an area a historic district does add additional layers of approval required for that kind of work. And by default, by requiring those extra layers, like it does make it more expensive to do that process. And so I feel like it's important to acknowledge that we're making it more difficult to build in this area just by virtue of the process. It maybe the protection of our cultural resources is worth that, but I think it's important that it's worth stating that this is going to make it more challenging to make it more affordable to build here. This, I think, reduces our likelihood of, for instance, some kind of structure that can affordably house the teachers of Fort River in this area. I fully appreciate the value of preserving the area's historic value. I mean, I also appreciate that this was an idea of the town manager, and that the staff would like to add some additional properties as well. But I wonder if this is the best application of, or if this is the best tool for preserving the homes that are truly historic and are of historic value. I'm not a historic preservationist, so I don't know the tools in the toolbox well enough. But I'm wondering if there is some kind of like scalpel tool available rather than kind of blanketing this entire area with additional layers of approval. While I would love to believe that, these well, I guess I'll stop there. I'll stop there. I would love if the report would include the area size. I couldn't find like how much actually acreage would be included in the district. That would be a really helpful thing to include in a final version. I'm curious to understand a little bit more about how well, no, I've said enough, so I'll stop there.
Okay, all right, Jara. I see that Angus, you have your hand up, and Steve and Chris still have their hands up again. I do want to say I recognize that we normally take a break at 8 o'clock or thereabouts. It's now almost 8:30. I want to say I'm perfectly willing to keep going with this, but if people want to take a break, you know, raise your hand or get my attention or just break in, because this is a good conversation. I was hoping we could wrap it up in time to take a break at a reasonable hour. So I'm not seeing any new hands as we do that. So Angus, I guess I'll go to you next.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's just building off of, I guess, what Jara is bringing up, which is just to say that if I mean, my understanding of local historic districts is that they generally do lead to less construction within the given area. Not always. And I think it's great that Steve and Bruce are both, supportive of thinking creatively, thinking expansively. But I guess my question is, if the board's composition changed, if the historic commission's composition changed, and they decided that they actually didn't want to have that perspective, they could block a lot. I guess I'm wondering how much could they block? What
Yeah.
requirements could they set?
Well, okay. Why don't I let Steve or Chris respond to that and then go ahead with your comments?
Well, we could block the demolition of a historic structure, but that's the purpose. That's a huge purpose of a local historic district. I mean, I'd like to keep the Bags Tavern where Shays Rebellion was plotted, but we can't block construction. We can only block what you can see from a public way. We can only determine what can be seen from a public way. We can't stop an ADU. We really can't block anything. And in terms of Jara's point about the toolbox, this is it. I mean, this is the only tool there is. I wish there were other tools, but there aren't. I mean, right now, if you want to knock down one of these buildings from the 1700s, you go to the Historic Commission and they'll give you a demolition delay for 12 months, and then the building can come down. And once it's down, and then this town looks like every other town. Like I said, this is the oldest. At one point we were investigating, having a local historic district in our downtown, which actually Bruce was opposed to, because some of the buildings downtown are old, but they're not particularly historic. These buildings are historic. These are the founding families of this town. Mattoon Street. I mean, we all drive to the elementary school. Mattoon Street. Do you know who Mattoon was? Well, there's his house. He was in the house. He was a Revolutionary War general. He was one of the first people in the House of Representatives. And, this is what makes this place, and it's worth protecting. And that's what the main thing about this, like again, and this is actually a pretty contained space. And like I said to Fred, we've actually made an effort to contain it as much as possible. And as Nate can attest, I've been personally resistant to mission creep of expanding the LHD because I'm very aware of the pushback in terms of development. Anyway, I'll let Chris go.
Chris?
Yeah.
Sure, I'll just follow up on a couple of the comments that were coming up related to new growth development in local historic districts. I mean, these are not meant to be a museum at all. These are areas that are meant to grow, change, adapt. It's really trying to keep what's significant there while still changing into the future. So it's well understood that these are areas that people live, work, run businesses. And in a lot of cases, these are places that more density actually makes sense. I'm not aware of any studies out there that suggest that there's less construction in a local historic district. I could actually point to some local historic districts that have more construction within the district than areas outside the district. And that's one of those reasons that's because that's where people want to live, because it's a nice walkable area in some other cities that but when they've actually done the studies for the number of building permits or the number of new units of housing that have been created, they've actually found by far the most units are within the local historic district. So this does not equate necessarily with stopping growth whatsoever. I'm interested in this idea of, and I only hear about this sort of anecdotally. I don't have a good study that I can point to, but because there's opposition that comes up to new density, new housing, sometimes that comes up in ways that neighbors, abutters concerned about that because they're concerned that it's going to really change the character of the neighborhood. It's going to have a very different look if we have new housing there. Anecdotally, I've heard of examples where by having the design review of a local historic district available, you really have that ability to make sure the additional housing that's going to go in behind, adjacent, somehow within the existing historic properties there, that's going to be all done in a compatible way. And that tends to actually be a way that the residents can really support some more housing in that area too.
All right, thank you. I see a one hand from one member of our public. Pam, could you bring over Bella Delfino? Excuse me.
Hello.
Hello, welcome. Please give us your name and your street address, and you would have 3 minutes for your comment.
Okay. My name is Beatrix Delfino. My address is 995 North Pleasant Street. I'm a local graduate student studying regional planning, and I think this conversation is very, very interesting. I have some questions just generally about if there's a concern that the planning board is going to be seen as a bunch of NIMBYs, like what is being done about public engagement or like public participation and community engagement on this issue, specifically for East Amherst, because just tangentially from my own experience here, I've been here 3 years now, and I didn't know about any of this history, even though I'm a self-proclaimed nerd about anything to do with planning and architecture. So I was wondering if anything in this funding or like um, getting this designation would allow for putting up like nondescript, not in your face plaques about housing history so people could walk in these areas and learn a little bit more about the history, because I think that would increase appreciation for the architectural history, while the locals may know about just the history by living here for a long time. A lot of the population is transient and from the students. And when I think about people who are upset about uh, or like perceive the planning board as trying to block development, it's most often people looking for housing, and that can be local residents and that can also be students. So I was just wondering if anybody has any comments on that.
All right, thank you, Bella. Steve or Chris, do you know if these kinds of initiatives often result in
You know,
walkable
we've had,
information?
well, I mean, Walker's done this great story map. And, you know, we have the Writers Walk, which has plaques in front of, you know, prominent writers. But yes, we could certainly do more signage. It's something that we've talked about.
All right.
Yeah, I work as a consultant. I work with lots and lots of communities that are trying to increase their community engagement, and interpretive signage is one of the ways that that's done.
Okay. I guess I feel the need to just clarify for Bella that I think the concern has been that the local historic district commission would be resistant to development, not the planning board. Okay. So Jesse and then Angus.
Thanks. Just wanted to add a comment, sort of based on Tara and Angus's concerns we're just expressing. Certainly, I think you all know I'm very much pro increasing housing in our town. But the one example I have of an LHD interfacing with this issue is actually in my backyard, literally, like on a property that abutted my property, that came to the LHD first, the commission for appropriateness. And I was one of the neighbors who spoke fairly strongly against the design that was presented because of that appropriateness piece. And again, it was not about increasing housing. It was about changing the character of the neighborhood. And so, to be honest, I'm of a split mind here because I think that's really important. And I do see the value, certainly after this presentation by Chris and comments by Steve, of this old town center. And so I think having that tool available to not just the commission, but the community to come and comment and help shape what goes on, I think there's a lot of value in that. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Jesse. Angus?
Yeah, I guess Bella's question and Jesse's point, I guess, raises a question for me, which is what has been the community's response to this, if at all? What do property owners within this local historic district think of this proposal? Is there a lot of support for it? Is there resistance to it? Are there options I'm not sure how Massachusetts law works. Is there options for property owners to not allow their property to be pulled into this local historic district? I'm just wanting to understand a little bit more about how the community that would be impacted by this feels about it.
All right. Steve, what kind of community outreach have you done?
Well, two things. The other two local historic districts were generated by the residents. The residents who live there wanted a local historic district and formed a committee. And this one was again instigated at the suggestion of the town manager. And to be honest, we've done outreach and we've gotten minimal response. And the limited response, as you read in our study report, has been split. This area is mostly student, there's a few, mostly it's absentee landlords. And I'm not even, to be honest, I'm not sure if they're even aware of what's going on. Certainly they haven't been very responsive. I mean, my vision for this in terms of housing, and this is a totally different issue. It'd be nice to have this to be a nice area that has condos for, like you said, teachers and people who live here year round, and not necessarily, exclusively for student housing, which I think this area is predominantly student housing now.
All right, thanks, Steve. Jara and then Walker.
Thank you. Well, Steve, I just want to say thank you for helping me to understand like what
Sure.
tools are and are not out there, and the historic significance of some of the properties in particular. Also, Walker, I did want to give you a shout out for the work on the story map because that is pretty awesome. Great job with that. I also just wanted to say that I really appreciate that we're able to have a very respectful conversation about what could be a contentious issue. So thank you to everybody for being respectful about this topic. Let's see, what was the one thing I wanted to just kind of wrap that up? I guess one question that I have about how this works is, or one concern I have, I suppose, is just because there is such a wide spectrum um, of time represented architecturally in the district, I'm worried that that could be used or abused in a way to reject um, proposals to say it's like, not in conformity with this district because, it looks like a 1930s house, but there's this 1884 house, 2 properties away. I guess I don't really know. I don't understand how that works because my understanding of historic districts, it's usually more cohesive identity and culture, whereas this is more of a serial kind of, or a time-based district. So could somebody explain to me exactly how that works?
I guess I would say that I'm not, my perception is that these districts don't discriminate against buildings that are already there. And that, for instance, the 1 or 2 little 1950s ranch houses that were included, if they were renovated or reclad, I think it's unlikely anybody would try to turn them into looking like a 1870s federal building or something.
Right. No, I'm sorry. I think I asked my question poorly. It was more that I was curious, can for new development or redevelopment of properties, because there are so many examples of different types of architecture and time periods, does that provide a lot of ammunition for a more nefarious historical commission to reject proposals, I guess?
I was going to jump in and just say that, Walker, I see your hand, and others, there's some references to design guidelines in the bylaw and in the rules and regs. And then the idea is to develop some design guidelines that those are helpful, right? To have some kind of framework for review. And local historic district can't, the idea is that if it denies a certificate, it has to have reasons, a project. And the idea is that eventually it could get to yes. So you can't take a site and say, categorically, it can't be redeveloped or changed. You take it on a case-by-case basis. And so, if someone is willing to work with the commission, staff and others, you can probably always get to yes, right? It really depends on, like you said, is it an extra cost? Is it time? Is it, how are they willing to work with that? I was just going to share my screen quickly and replace this one just to show the newer building that Steve mentioned on off South Pleasant Street. So here's the, well, a church building with Amherst College, the addition in the back. And so, when this came before the Historical Commission, the design was slightly different. And so there was discussions about the patterns of the windows on the new section, kind of its relationship, mass and void, and openness, kind of the proportions of the windows. And then there's like a hyphen, kind of a recessed area connection, a hyphen between the old and new building. And so when this was discussed, yeah, sorry, there's a sign in the way. But there was minor changes made, and I think it works really well. And so it's a modern building that's compatible with a historically significant building up front. And so this wasn't in a local historic district, but it did get reviewed by the Historical Commission, Design Review Board, and probably the Planning Board. And so it all worked together to make changes to the project, but it worked really well. And so that to me, it's what a local historic district could do as well. Sorry, I replaced your screen, Chris. I just wanted to show that.
All good.
But it is true that that process is additional time and consultant money, and has the potential for rejection. So it feels more like a special permit to me as a process, rather than a site plan review. It feels like another special permit to be required. Okay, with the loss of the screen sharing, I guess I'm a little bit unsure if I'm seeing the hands in the same order that they were before. Bruce, somehow you've jumped ahead of Walker, so I guess I'm going to ask Walker to go ahead. She hasn't spoken yet, really, this evening.
Thank you. I had two things. I wanted to go back to the public outreach for a minute and just specify what we did a little bit more. We did have a public hearing at the local historic district commission, and then we also sent information letters specifically to all the property owners within the proposed district so that they could see what was being done or what was being proposed, and also answer a survey. And as Steve said, we didn't get a lot of response. I think we got like a 15 or 16% response rate on the survey, and it was split almost evenly between supportive and not supportive. As he said, there's a lot of absentee or out of town landlords, and I think they probably weren't as interested. We are required to have another public hearing that we also directly send to each of the property owners, so it's possible the second time around they might be more interested at the end of this review period, where we discuss the comments and feedback that we get from the planning board and the historical commission and the state historical commission. So there's going to be at least one more chance for people to provide feedback. And then of course it goes to town council. And then the other comment I had was kind of along the same lines as Nate, that the design guidelines that we're discussing putting into place would provide not only clarity to people who are trying to apply to get new construction or a renovation done, it also provides consistency. So even if the board members change, the priorities set in the guidelines will remain the same. And the priorities set can be those that the town as a whole agrees on. We can take public comment about what people think is important to include in the design guidelines and what the priorities are, and how to address buildings that might be newer, how to address new construction in a way that's supportive of development without changing the character. So that gives us another opportunity to address some of those questions and get it down in writing, and have some of the smaller changes potentially be administrative approval rather than going through a hearing process, which reduces the time and cost for applicants. So we're going to be working on that process over the next few months and next year.
Walker, thank you. If I could ask you a question about a phrase you used and was used earlier. Changing the character of a neighborhood. As settlements grow, the neighborhood character does change. And even the introduction of the automobile changed character of places. So is it a good thing to be preserving the character of a neighborhood unilaterally? Or should we be, how much should we be allowing neighborhoods to change? I would argue that we don't want to strangle the evolution of settlements, and that we need at most we need a balance between what areas we're going to preserve the neighborhood character and what areas we're going to be allowing the character to change in whatever way it needs to change.
Yeah, I actually agree with you, and I think that the way character is defined or the way that that's impacted by new development can be defined in the guidelines and by the priorities of the commission. So they might say, they're welcoming to new types of buildings or new types of construction, but they want it to not be jarringly different than the building that it's next to or the sort of the pattern of development within the district. Some other guidelines in other towns I've seen might have things like the setback of the new building should match that of the other buildings on the street. So you don't have a building that's protruding further towards the street or set much farther back than the other buildings. And maybe the size, you're not having something that's twice the scale of the buildings around it, but maybe the style within that, there's a lot of range for different kind of styles, or shapes of buildings that are new and interesting, or maybe adapted to modern times, but still kind of harmoniously fit into the neighborhood in a way that maybe something that hasn't gone through the review would. And I think it is a little bit subjective and it would involve a sort of a case by case discussion. And Steve might also have more to say, or Bruce, on that particular note.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask one more question before I move to the next four hands that I see. And this is a question for Nate, and potentially for you, Walker, and your team. But what is it that you need from us tonight? Do you need a vote of recommendation to council, or are you just soliciting comments?
We are just soliciting comments, so any feedback that anybody is giving us, we will take into consideration. And if anybody wants to provide written feedback after the meeting, we will take that into consideration as well when we get to the final report.
Okay, thank you. All right. Everybody's good, right? Your bladders are just feeling fine. All right. Bruce.
I think we're doing this because the process is stipulated by the Mass Historical Commission says that we have a meeting. So we're basically touching a base, but that's not what I tuned in to say. I'm taking you up, Jara, on your concerns. You used the word nefarious. I'm just using that to trigger back to what you were saying, expressing concern that these commissions would impede and so forth. And let me tell you, I've been on this commission 8 years. It is the intent of the commission at every meeting to approve a project. Maybe we do so, and almost invariably we do so by suggesting, asking, or conditioning. But we're in the business of approving projects. I can think of only 2 projects in 8 years that we denied a certificate of appropriateness for because of the nature of the project, rather than that we have denied a few on the basis that they didn't have sufficient information and we needed them to refile or some technique or something like that. But and of those 2, one of them went away. In other words, they didn't come back with because as was mentioned, Nate mentioned, denial is not something that's arbitrarily given. There has to be reasons. We have to say why. And in the case of the Amherst Media project, is the one project in 8 years where there was an outcry. We listened. We did actually say, no, this is not deserving of a certificate of appropriateness. This extremely awkward, I would say stupid proposal, thoughtless, mindless, idiotic thing that they brought forward first. And we said no, and we said, in order to gain acceptance from this commission, you should do the following: 1, 2, 3. I think there were 3 rather particularly thought out questions. They took those to heart. They came back with a completely new direction, one that was followed through and received a certificate of appropriateness. It was probably the most challenging, most time-consuming of all of the hearings that I've attended in 8 years. But we all got a better project out of that. Sadly, I don't think it'll be built because I don't know that the horsepower of Amherst Media to deliver on this project would happen. I hope it does, because if it does, it'll be a demonstration of what I'm talking about. But I don't think we should have concerns that this commission, or indeed any commission, but certainly not this one, is going to be an impediment to intelligent and thoughtful progress in town. I mean, as Steve says, we are the only tool in the toolbox to preserve historic buildings, and that's basically what we're there. I'm not too big on preserving character of neighborhoods for exactly the reasons that were discussed. Things change, you know, automobiles happen. Although you would have thought we would have gotten rid of power poles by now, because that's 150-year-old technology that deserved to die in year 1, but it's still there. Stuff like that, we deal with it, but we are thinking about how we can preserve these buildings and how we can add character and narrative to these parts of town that we particularly care about, and we've taken the trouble to protect it this way.
All right,
That's
thanks,
very
Bruce.
reassuring. Thank you, Bruce.
Angus.
I don't know if Steve wanted to jump in and say anything in response to what Bruce was saying. But...
Steve? I don't know if Steve's there.
Okay, I can share my thoughts.
I'm muting
Um,
myself. Oh, here
oh.
I am. Okay, sorry. I just wanted to, sorry about that. I just wanted to say something about character. There's a lot of talk about Destination Amherst, and I just want to say history is our brand. When I think of Amherst, I think of Emily Dickinson. Character is what makes a town special, and it's a big part of what makes people want to move here. And so I think it behooves us to try to honor that and preserve it. In terms of the standards, our LHD is pretty lax. We don't deal with paint color. We don't, like if you go to Nantucket, which is I was just at, that's a place that's preserved in amber. The entire island is a historic district. Okay, that's not what we are. These are little pockets. We have if we get this one passed, which we may not, we'll only have 3. I mean, and they're all pretty. I mean, the Lincoln Sunset's pretty big, but the Dickinson one is tiny, and this one's only 50 or so properties. So these are not. This is not Nantucket. These are just tiny pockets. I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Back to you, Angus.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to say, since y'all are soliciting feedback, I'd like to reiterate that I really think that the Historic Commission should reconsider whether they include parcels 58 and 24 in this district. I know that it would then not be contiguous perhaps with the National Historic District, but those apartment complexes, a bunch of them are visible from the road, so they would be subject to local historic district review, and they're also on the edge. At least one of them is on the edge, so I just want to flag that as something for the historic district or historic commission to rethink.
So I'm jumping in, I'm sharing my screen. So here's a map of the proposed district. And so just to respond to you, Angus, so here's property 24. And, you really want to have a contiguous district. And so to me, I would include this one for a few reasons, but the main one would be you'd want to preserve what's around it. And so if this were exempt from the district, I think Massachusetts Historical Commission would recommend putting it in. And the idea would be you'd want to then have control if this were ever redeveloped or changed, that you then maintain, a streetscape. And so, I think that one to me is a difficult one. The other one is this one up here. There's 58. Again, it's closer to the periphery of the district, but in the Massachusetts Historical Commission, in their guidelines, they acknowledge that they're going to be, whatever you want to call them, non-contributing structures, or there's another term, but that you want to include it because the property itself, its location within the district, is important to be able to, like I said, have an opportunity to shape new development. And so I think it would be difficult to remove these. If, for instance, it was this one, or if we said, well, maybe the district could end here, and then that way maybe we would do this. But I think there's some significant properties to the north of it. I think it'd be difficult to exclude these because they're internal to the district. I'm just throwing that out there now. I think it's something that Chris and the commission could think about. I do think it's difficult to remove something central in the district.
I'll just respond. I take your point on parcel 24. On parcel 58, I don't find it convincing.
I'll leave this up here just for a second so everyone can see, here's Spalding Street, here's Salem Street, here's the JCA, here's the school building, and Route 9 is further south off the map.
Yeah, I mean, this is helpful, Nate, and I'm sort of going to go back to Fred's original comment about, gee, why, most of the buildings going up Main Street are equally historic and contribute to the character of the main entrance to Amherst for people that came in from Route 2. And to me, it's sort of, where do you draw the line, or how do you balance out these areas versus allowing the rest of the town to evolve in a way that it might need to evolve. So if we had another local historic district that went from this point west up to the Dickinson historic district, would that be a good thing? I don't know. I mean, maybe it's what is it, College Street in Belchertown? That's where we're going to allow things to change in this part of town, and we'll keep Main Street under tighter restrictions.
Yeah, I mean, I think quickly to, I think it was Angus or someone mentioned that there's a lot of zoning districts here, and it's right. There's BVC, there's RVC, there's all these, and we've talked about looking at East Amherst for rezoning, typically along, Belchertown Road and Route 9. It could be that this also could be rezoned, and so the zoning districts try to respond to what's on the ground, and maybe a more appropriate zoning in this area is not, maybe it's RVC and not BVC, and maybe we actually make more RVC because we want to encourage residential development with smaller mixed-use buildings or something. And in that way, to me, this, I think our whole discussion about where we want to have density and zoning made me think like, wow, in Amherst in general, we have a lot of zoning districts. I feel like they could all be updated. And that's another conversation though. But yeah, I think the reason why this could stay this way is, some of the buildings here, although they're newer, they're still, mid-19th century. And so there is a kind of a time when the architecture and when it's built, also, what some of these buildings here were stores that supported the East Amherst commerce area. And so there is some, there's a reason why it's this. Massachusetts Historical Commission would say, are there geographic features, other areas of why you would end it, whether it's, along a street or if there's a break in development or time period. And so, at some point you do have to make the decision of why is it here and why is it not here, right? And it could be that I think some of these homes here now are actually much newer than the homes that are really central to this district. And so at some point you have to make that decision of why do you stop? I feel like if this were another district between the two, there's a reason why it would be a different district. And so we looked at having another National Register district actually further west, a depot district that captures kind of this mid to late 19th century, kind of a little bit more, commercial, different architectural styles, but not a local historic district, just a National Register district for acknowledgement.
All right, Walker?
I was just gonna say that this is a slightly older map and that these three buildings are included, and I'm pretty sure this one as well.
Which three are you talking about?
Can you see me drawing on it or not? Maybe you can't see it because it's not my screen.
Oh, actually, yes, we do.
Yeah, those three at the top of Salem Street and this one here. Yeah,
So those are included.
those are included in the proposed district. We'd added those.
All right, I don't see any hands. It sounds like we don't need a vote or a recommendation this evening, and Walker and Steve, we've had a pretty good conversation. I hope you've gotten what you needed out of this.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, yes, thank you. Thank you. And at the very least, Chris has digitized, all these properties which weren't before. So that's a tremendous resource for the town in any event.
Great. Okay. So
Thank you, Chris.
Why don't we let you guys go, and we will wish you well.
Thank you.
Some of us wishing you success in this, and others maybe not, but it is good work, and it's nice to have the record that you've assembled.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, board members, I think that was the last, well, maybe not, depending on what you want to talk about tonight. Should we take a 5-minute break? Or should we just plow through?
I think we should take a break if we intend to do housing. I think we
Yeah,
can
do we
plow
want
through
to
if we
talk,
don't.
Nate, do we need to talk a lot about our general housing discussion this evening?
I think we could take a break. I have the Housing and Zoning Subcommittee came up with kind of a framework for the meeting for North Amherst, so it'd be nice to talk about that. Councilor Shane reached out to Doug and myself to suggest some meeting dates.
Yeah, I did not respond. Did you?
No, I was gonna wait till today and talk with the board about it. We could talk about
All right. So it's 7 after 9, and why don't we take a 5-minute break? Try to come back at 12 after 9. See if we can synchronize our watches on that. All right, it looks like people are wandering back. Oh, it looks like maybe we have everyone but Pam. And we will need Pam to remove our screen slide. Jesse?
Thanks. Well, quickly, I think you can click on the webinar version and then you don't see the screen side, but that's not what I raised my hand to say. Um, I think I've said things like this before, and I'm going to say it again because I think the hour we spent talking about parking spots and trash removal would have been much better spent on an enjoyable conversation and useful conversation like we just had for the last hour, and a conversation we could have had about upcoming things for an hour. And so really what I'm asking is, what is really our mandate? And like, how much of that are we required to do at that level of discussion? Because it seemed to me a lot of that could have been Nate saying, yes, I reviewed all these things. There's no issues really. You all had a chance to look it over. Does anyone want to raise something? I don't know if we can operate that way. I guess that's what I'm asking.
Well, Nate, do you want to say anything or?
Yeah,
I mean, I can say I thought that was a fruitful discussion, and I think it's a good thing for us to be talking about together. It's not directly zoning, but it's part of the, I don't know, development environment of Amherst.
Sorry, I'm talking about the first Civi's property parking spaces. Yeah, no, I very much enjoyed the historical conversation. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the first agenda item that I felt like we spent a really long time, and only because there weren't any big issues, we spent a long time talking about tiny issues that I think nobody had an issue with. So that's what I'm questioning.
Okay. Well, we have a certain, I mean, we need to go through findings and conditions. It's not something we can just sort of punt on and say to Nate, write up whatever you want and, I'll sign on behalf of the board. So there's a certain amount of sort of, I don't know, regulatory protocol or something you could say, but I agree, there wasn't very much to that.
Yeah, I think, I was gonna say, I think it's, and Jesse, I think it's okay to keep asking. I think, to me, what that means is we, as we look at our zoning priority list, how do we write in some of that? And I think I said it's very difficult. So, we don't have we've changed how we calculate the number of parking spaces per unit. And so, some of it is the board has to, did you think that was an adequate number? We can say the lighting can be downcast, but then we want to confirm that. The trash removal piece is really interesting because that's a big concern around town, right? Is what's visible. And so, although, if we could write that into the bylaw and have it be a condition, and then, staff would have to hold up an application until we know that, okay, here's what's going to be met. And then, we wouldn't have the board review it necessarily. I think it's really difficult to sometimes get all of that in an application, right? And so I think, but if we want to change that, I think we can change the rules and regs, maybe the bylaw a little bit, and we can work toward that. I agree that if there's like 50 standard conditions that we always apply, is there a way to make that an upfront thing so that we don't have to talk about it? So, if we like the idea that trash has to be cleaned up and removed or containers within 24 hours, we should put that somewhere, and then we don't have to talk about it again. But I think it's really difficult on a project by project basis to, I think this one was easy, but on bigger projects, everything kind of overlaps, and it's hard to just have such discrete conversations about pieces of an application. But
I guess one other thing that comes to mind, and I'm sure you won't like this, but as hearings like that go for site plan review and special permit, that was super fast.
Yeah, I'm aware of that too. Yes.
I mean, I don't know how many of the major building projects you've been on this board for, but That was really fast.
Again, but you're kind of making my point too, Doug. Like, I
Yeah.
agree. The big projects, how many hours we spend, and I do think a lot of those hours are also on minutia rather than the big picture things. And again, I think someone should look at it and make sure
Well,
they're meeting whatever
it's
standards we're
also
setting.
good
right?
for you to call it out, to say, hey, I'm impatient, or I don't see the point in us going down this rabbit hole, because, some of the really long processes we've had was when we had other members who wanted to go down the rabbit hole.
Sure.
And for them, that was like critical. And hearing that, I mean, I know we don't have those people on the board at the moment, but, if you think we're talking too much about it, say something. And if there's something we're passing over too fast, say that too. So.
Thanks.
Yeah, I was gonna jump in and just say, yeah, it's really interesting. I think it's also the personalities on the board and perspectives. And so, there's some
Absolutely.
other boards, the zoning board, for instance, tends to be really detailed oriented. So it's about the use, but they'll ask, they may get down to like, in the design review board, right? But that's the role, but like details of a sign. And, so maybe for the planning board, it's like, well, the site plan review is, we know there'll be a sign ban on a building. Do we have to get down to the level of font and color? In terms of rather, we like the dimensions of the sign band across the front of the building and maybe materials, right? And so there's, I think it's sometimes it's personality and sometimes what the board is doing. And I think there's a difference between site plan review and special permit. And so, yeah, I think, but to your point, I think it's on the list is right. Maybe getting a little bit more conditions to allow administrative approval of certain projects so that the board doesn't have to spend time reviewing some things.
So I hope it's okay. We talked about that for 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Angus.
I just wanted to add very quickly onto what Jesse was saying. I'm not sure that I would advocate for an administrative change, although I think that is worth exploring. I think, in particular, like having gone to the site to see the site with Nate, it was a very minimal and cosmetic set of changes compared to other projects that I think would merit much greater consideration. And I think it might help for us as a board for either Nate or you, Doug, to maybe preface a little bit with kind of level setting our expectations for thinking about how big a project we're considering here, versus not as big. Because I think I'm with Jesse that the hour we spent on that, I think, would have been much better suited to other purposes. And if we do that a number of times, it's going to limit our ability to make some much more important changes than the Bruno's Pizza Shop being shrunk by 400 square feet.
Okay, so noted. All right, moving on. I guess it's now 9:21. We're moving to the fifth item, general housing discussion. Nate, you did have some new material in the packet, a couple of maps of town, I think, with a whole bunch of different areas shown. What would you like to get tonight?
Yeah, I don't, it's 9:21. I think I'll share the map and then I think we could talk about the North Amherst piece. I'll context this, as I was going to mention later, there was, 2 citizen petitions for zoning. The planning board has been talking about what could happen. There's the housing production plan moving forward. And so I think there's a lot of ideas. We have a zoning priority list with the housing and zoning subcommittee. I think the board looked at it at the last meeting. So some of it is like all in this context, what do we want to prioritize? And so I'll show the map. I think it's really good. I think we can talk about North Amherst. And then, if we want to solidify a date for this North Amherst meeting, I don't think it has to be the full board. I actually think it could just be 2 or 3 representatives and staff for this initial meeting. The North Amherst residents would like to have it up there. If it's not a full board, it's not a public meeting. It's really, we've been asked to present information to them. We can change it at a later meeting if we want to. And so the map is, something the planning board talked about, right? Kind of where are some ideas of, where's my map? For development. And so I can zoom in, but, at the last meeting, there was a mention of a bunch of places. Really, it's, you know, maybe like 13 areas in town that we thought could have some new development or infill or density. And so this is just showing you really, you know, it's not a lot of town, right? It's kind of like what we were talking about. If you look at what is zoned for business, it's really a small percentage of town. So, you know, zooming in North Amherst, there's the professional research park area. Here's the commercial area, an area zoned in North Amherst as commercial. Here's what we're looking at for the overlay. Here's Olympia Drive area off East Pleasant. And in the downtown, there's kind of some overlapping areas north of Fearing. We'll call this the Gateway. Here's north of downtown. The University Drive overlay, just to illustrate what has been done. You know, East Amherst. And so just quickly, the local historic district, you know, didn't come this far south. So the local historic district was, you know, we saw was, you know, like here. And these could change, but I think, you know, this would be a context map in the North Amherst meeting anyways, to say, here's kind of the planning board is looking, you know, around town for different areas. Here's Professional Research Park in East Amherst. So there's Research Drive and Hall Drive here. And here's Pomeroy Village Center. And so, you know, there may be other areas to add or change to this, but this is what was discussed at the previous meeting, and I just wanted to show it, you know, graphically and on a map what we were talking about, or what I, you know, what I assumed was kind of these general areas. So when we say East Amherst along Route 9, sure, here's Colonial Village and down to almost down to Gatehouse Road. So it stops a little short of the, you know, a little short of the river. You know, and then there's maybe other areas downtown. But I just kind of context-wise, here's what we're looking at. You know, these zones have all different zoning districts and what's allowed and what's built there now. And, you know, I think some of the idea would be, okay, if we think this area is good for a certain type of density, you know, this area we thought was good for pretty high density, you know, what does it mean for some of these other areas? Maybe it's similar, maybe it's different. And that's it really. And I think it's important, you know, especially given light of the citizen petitions of, you know, kind of where does the planning board and staff want to see different kinds of growth, whether it's housing growth or just, you know, different kinds of housing types. And that's why I sent the other document, just trying to show some visuals of what are the different housing types. You know, so there's cottage style development, there's, you know, Mansfield, Mass is looking at a 40Y, which is actually really small, you know, 10 to 12,000 square foot lots. So, you know, they're proposing to have this overlay on 3 properties that probably would maybe get 8 to 10 big housing lots, but with the overlay, they're going to get like 80, right? So to me, it's more like a traditional style neighborhood development with narrower streets, small lots, and probably, and it's smaller homes. It's required to be small homes. And maybe that's a different map here of where we think that would be kind of interesting to look at. But I think just context-wise, you know, what does this all mean? You know, the PRP up here, there's a lot of wetland. There's already some development here. You know, North Amherst, this commercial, there's some commercial uses here happening. There's North Square, but okay, if we think there's something here, what does it mean? You know, do we start putting priorities on some of these areas to investigate? That's it. I mean, I don't, you know, if we have
So
comments, sure.
Nate, I think one other aspect of this kind of map that would be useful is to show the conservation land on and the areas of town that are not developable. Because I, you know, things like the 40Y, you know, where you might put a lot of little houses, you know, if you, I mean, it seems to me that makes more sense in a low density residential area, or even like a subdivision, like, I don't know, Echo Hill or something, than to propose that downtown. So, you know, but if you proposed it in Echo Hill, you'd probably have everybody up in arms, because you're changing the character of the neighborhood. And so, you know, we don't have a lot of empty land to try new things. We have a lot of somewhat developed land that if we want to try something new, we will change the character of the neighborhood.
Right. Yeah. And so just quickly, I mean, I feel like, to that point, Doug, is I'm going to mention Colonial Village. Zoom in a little bit. So right now Colonial Village has these two roads, service drives, and these buildings around, and it has a fair number of units. They want to add more. When UMass had concepts for the North Village that they redesigned using the same concept, curvilinear roads and everything, one of their other ideas was a gridded street network with almost like townhomes and open lots. But yeah, right, I agree that there's not a lot of areas. So to me, it's like if you took this area here and we said, oh, what would be a great way to redevelop it? Is it really like one big building here and then small homes here and another big building? Or ideally it's like, would you put like a few streets in here and have a neighborhood? And where our zoning for years, not just Amherst but Massachusetts, hasn't allowed something like that to happen. And so 40Y and some of these other ideas to me are trying to get back to, okay, what are some great ways to have some development? And I think it's really difficult because, right, there aren't these areas of land like here. If this weren't all wet here, I'd say, wow, this would be a great place to put some neighborhoods. But it's at Amherst College, it's all wet. So I agree. I think we have to be strategic. I can add some layers to the map. I think it's a start of a conversation of what we want to see.
Okay, Jared.
Thank you. So just so I understand like how we're framing this is essentially a map of areas that we've discussed for investigation for future development, redevelopment, or concentration of growth. We're not saying necessarily like this is we're going to take what we did in University Drive and do it in all these areas, but the idea is that we're going to be presenting this map as a part of our event in North Amherst to demonstrate that we're looking at a variety of different places for a variety of different strategies. Is that a fair synopsis of what this is? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's like we could do a small area plan for one of them. We could do an overlay for another. We could do nothing for another. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think in 2023 the planning board had extra meetings for 6 months and met in the town room, and we had the town manager and representatives from UMass and the housing trust, and some of these areas were identified then about, okay, let's create this list of areas we would want to work on. And then University Drive became the first one, and it took a while to get through, and then we started with North Amherst. And I think some of it is North Amherst residents might be asking, well, why are we focusing on North Amherst? What about elsewhere in town? And it's like, well, there's been these dozen other areas that have been discussed. It just takes a lot of time to then actually bring an idea from a concept to a zoning regulation. And so this is kind of showing context of who knows what will happen in some of these other areas, right? Maybe it's just a district change without anything major, but there's consideration for these other areas in town as well.
Right. Okay. Great. Thanks.
Jesse.
Thanks. Nate, I would also say that's exactly how we should open the meeting in North Amherst. Exactly what you just said. Saying that history of how we got here and how these were identified. I would also maybe just visually, one minor suggestion would be to make University Drive overlay in a different color and, name it, and then also North Amherst in a slightly different color, because that's what we're working on now, to sort of show a progression. Yes. And likewise, I like your idea of presenting, exactly how you just talked us through it. Maybe in Colonial Village, we want to think about this other style of development, like give some more concrete examples people could think about, not just leaving it very vague. I like describing it like that a lot.
All right, thank you. Fred?
Minor point, but I like the approach, and I think part of the initial presentation should be I think people all over the town understand this, that what's really driving market distortion is student housing. And that's a very logical reason why the property in North Amherst fits with what we did in University Drive, because it brackets the university. I think people will understand that fairly obvious situation.
All right, Fred, or rather Bruce.
I agree that this is a good way, or it's an okay way to open the meeting, a discussion with North Amherst residents. But Nate, no more than 30 seconds, maybe 60 seconds at the most. Really, this is simply an intro paragraph, but don't go on about it. Aim for 30 seconds, or whoever's doing it, aim for 30 seconds, because what Fred's talking about is the main course. And we shouldn't shy away from it. And let's not be mealy-mouthed about this. Let's just go in, say what we're going to say it clearly, and don't give a shit about whether people are going to be for it or against it. We know what we're trying to do. Let's just be clear and honest and bold about what we're trying to achieve and why. And then, if everybody votes against it, we've done our best. We're not responsible for the way these people will vote up here in this end of town. All we can do is try our best to make a case as to why it makes sense. And if people's prejudices or superior intelligence in terms of what they understand or whatever, there could be all sorts of reasons. We're trying our best to find a solution, or to do the least we can, the best we can, which is not a lot, which is to create an opportunity for the kind of housing that we think is necessary to solve the problem in town, or to contribute to solving the problem in town. But let's not be wishy-washy about this. Let's not prattle on forever about it. Let's be clear. Let's be brief and speak in bullets, and then sit back and listen, and just listen. That's what we want to do. Mostly we want to listen. I don't want to convince my neighbors that this is the right thing necessarily. I want to find out how it could be better, and I want to help them make what we might think is the best decision, but it may not be the best decision. But we're going to find out. So that's the thing. Don't prattle on about it. Let's go there, say something brief and pointed, and then listen to what's being said.
All right, thank you, Bruce. Angus.
Just wanted to add here.
All right. Well, I guess I will add, I'm not sure I would make it really clear that we don't give a shit.
Yeah, I didn't take it like that.
Good. Nate, frankly, I was getting rattled by the amount of time you were taking to explain something which I thought could be said in about a sentence and a half. And I was concerned that that would be the character of this thing. And I think that it's just going to go south. So I guess I care about it, but I'm not going to try and block every exit to this thing. I want to find out what people think about it. So our job is to be clear about what we think, not to try and second guess everybody.
Oh,
That's
sure.
their job.
Talking about the map was not at all my intro or what would have been said for the North Amherst thing. It was more talking about the map.
Okay. Well, look, I've unwound myself, so I'm good. I'm sorry if I'm being too anxious or too aggressive about this, but I want what we spend a lot of time. We go over this. We've been talking about it. We seem to go over the same damn thing all the time. I'm ready for something pointed, some kind of next major step.
All right, thank you, Bruce. We should set a date, Nate.
Yeah, I feel like that was a lead-in, a good segue. I do see Jesse and Jara have your hands up.
Yeah, Jesse and then Jara.
I'll try and be quick. I don't entirely agree, Bruce, because I think we've thought about this so much. We want just the bullet point. But I think we have to set up the problem and why this is a good part of the solution. Not to try and second guess what people are going to come at us with, but to frame it in the right way, that this is part of the solution and a very attractive part, and here's why. But really, we need to state what the problem is first, probably with numbers about students that you've helped put together. Then show the map. Yes, briefly, here are all the areas the planning board's been considering for 3 years now. We did this one, now we're focusing on this one. There's more to come, right? Succinct, but not, I think we have to give context so that the North Amherst residents see we're not just trying to have North Amherst solve the whole problem.
All right, Jara.
Two things, and I will also be brief. Number one, I think it'd be really beneficial and important that I know this is being organized, I believe through homeowners association or neighborhood association, but seeing as we are intending this to be for students or renters, I feel like it's important that we invite them to be a part of this process as well. And so I don't know if that's reaching out to UMass Student Life or if it's the property managers for the current rental properties that are there. But I think it's really important that we incorporate the feedback of the people who will actually be living in those units, not just the folks who live adjacent. Of course, I don't mean to diminish the relevance of their feelings and interests, but I want to make sure that we're inviting everybody who's going to be impacted by this zoning overlay and not just those who are aware of our initiatives. The second part is that I would love to help with the presentation if there's any role for me to play with that.
Yeah, so sorry, I'll jump in. That's great. Yeah, so this was a framework that the public or the subcommittee, the Housing and Zoning Subcommittee, came up with. I think really, so there's some dates suggested by North Amherst for October 21st or 23rd, or the 22nd, which I don't think will work. And so if we like those dates, we could talk about it. I was going to ask for one or two, maybe three members to help with presentations or preparation of material. So what we said here was, right, no more than 10 slides, some maps printed out or ready to be shown, depending on what the meeting format would be and where. And all of it can be encompassed within some quick bullet points that's been mentioned. And so really it's a listening session. Jara, I guess some of it would be, we have to talk about what we think this is. So the North Amherst residents asked for this. I think what we said here would be there could be a more interactive approach at a second meeting or follow-up meetings. And so to me, this would be, maybe it's okay if it's at the North Amherst Library and it's tailored a little bit to some residents. And then, if we want to move it forward, we can have more public meetings about it and do more invitations. I just, I think it's, I feel like it's hard, we can advertise this as a public meeting. We could get 100 people. I just want to make sure we have the space and, we're prepared for that. I think there'll probably be a series of conversations if this moves forward. And so, yeah, I feel like I'm not quite sure how to approach that yet in terms of, I'm not even sure how big North Amherst, how big the space is in North Amherst right now, but I'm glad they take your help on a presentation. And
Great. And that all makes sense to me. So thank you. Thank you, Nate.
And so I guess I'd want to see a show of hands. I can stop sharing my screen of, do we like the idea of late October? Do we want to push it back a little bit? I'm not sure, if for some reason it seemed like those dates, the 21st and 23rd, were what were suggested by Councilor Shane. I don't know why necessarily. I mean, it could be the week later. I guess there's Halloween, but if we think,
well, both of those work for me. I think it's clear Bruce thinks we've talked about this enough, and we need to get out there and see how people feel about it.
Socialize it.
Yeah. I think I'm happy to help. I know that if I'm the spokesman, that I'm going to want to have more input on how it's choreographed than if I'm just a supporting actor. So we should figure that out.
Yeah,
I think in terms of producing material, most of that's going to fall on you, Nate, and Pam, at least graphic material. As far as slides that have text on them, we can all do PowerPoint. So
I mean, so Thursday, the 23rd, to me, it's 2 weeks from tomorrow. That would be okay. I think that gives us, hopefully enough time to pull it all together. Is that something we think works and we can let North Amherst
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
I'll be out of town, but it sounds like there's a critical mass that would be able to be there.
So I guess that's the question. Do we like the idea of having just a few planning board representatives? If it's a sub-quorum, to me, we wouldn't post it. It would just be us going to the North Amherst to present this idea. Like I said, we can always have a public meeting with the full board later at subsequent meetings, but for this initial one, having 2 or 3 members and staff to be there.
Bruce?
21st or 3rd is good for me. I can be there if necessary. The room is, how many people know and have been in the North Amherst library meeting room? I mean, I had 35 people in there the weekend before last, and probably 50 in there would be a squeeze. But you can have double doors that open out, so it could spill into the, so I might get 80, and it would be very tight, but it's cooler in the year, so if it gets hot, it won't be because it's 90 outside. So managing expectations around that, I think that room will be okay. It's hard to know who's going to show, but I think it'll be okay. But it could be tight, just so as we know. So I would think that in thinking about, there is a screen there, and I mean, I'm not sure a projector will take up room. I suppose we do need to use a projector, and there was something else I was going to say, but I can't remember what it is. So that's. I just wanted to work around the space that we would be doing this in. I think it'll be okay, but we might have to be inventive.
Well, Bruce, were you talking about the capacity partly to say that we should try to only have a subset of the committee of this board present?
Oh, I don't think, I mean, whether the 7 of us or 3 of us is going to
Doesn't
make a
matter.
difference to the room. I mean, if 7 of us show up, but we haven't advertised it, it's not a formal meeting of the planning board. I imagine that just means we can't make decisions or do anything, right? And we're not trying to do anything. It's basically a data collection, isn't it? So am I wrong about worrying about whether we restrict this to
3 or fewer?
Yeah.
I guess the question is this a planning board meeting in North Amherst, which is, or is it us going to North Amherst to, at the request of, District 1? And so it's to me, it's a nuance, but it is, if we post it as a public meeting, it's a public meeting. We have to take minutes. We have to put an agenda. All these things. If it's not, it's not.
I would say it's not, and we should try hard to make it not, because that's work that you don't want to do and no need to do. I mean, we might try and record it just for the purposes, just for convenience, so that we get people's literal feedback. But beyond recording it, I was hoping that it wouldn't have the level of formality of a planning board meeting. But at the same time, we didn't have to be careful to make sure that the 4th board member that shows up has to sit in the car.
Jesse?
Yeah, I was thinking it would be a non-official meeting, but I'm happy not to be. I'm happy, I think, for Nate and you, Doug, and maybe you, Bruce, if you've been wanting to be a main participant, is for you to decide how this should go and almost decide who should present what. I'm happy to participate or not. I do think it's really important to get the conversation out there as the main goal here and to get the feedback.
Well, given my volubility a moment ago, you might want me to be the guy in the car. And
Well,
then
your neighbors know you and they know you'll cool off in 10 minutes and then you'll be fine. Was there a time suggestion for these nights? Just to mark it down. Oh, you're muted, Nate.
Yeah, I'll look at my email. I forget actually what, there was a specific time. No, I mean, it just said the, I think it was just like the evening, maybe a 6:30 to 8 time slot, I think was suggested, but
That sounds good. Does Kathy have an opinion on time?
that was in her email.
Okay, well, let's go with that.
Yeah, and if the full board wants to be there, I was just thinking that if we had, say 3 board members kind of being the presenter with staff and the others show up, that's fine. There's really no discussion with them. And that way it's just, it's not, quote, the formal posted meeting.
Yeah, it feels like if we can avoid that, we might, it's just going to make life easier for us.
Yes. I mean, I still am, yes. I had an informal meeting with the Conservation Commission the other day on behalf of the Amherst Community Land Trust with consultants. So we showed up and we were squeezed in. So that was, well, actually, that was the informal applicant, not that the board was quite formal. So I suppose, no, I don't know what I'm talking about. Shut up, Bruce.
All right, I'll write back to Kathy tomorrow. I'll suggest the 23rd at 6:30 in the North Amherst Library, and I can, I'll reach out to everyone and just confirm, roles and,
Okay.
And we can work from there.
All right, we'll move on then. That's good for our general housing discussion tonight. Time is 9:50. All right, we'll see if we can go through our usual last stuff pretty quickly here. Pam and Nate, any old business not anticipated?
No.
No? How about new business?
No.
How about A&R subdivision Form A? No applications?
Nope, not
All
today.
right, upcoming ZBA applications we might be interested in.
I don't have anything there either.
Okay, upcoming SPP, SPR, SUB applications.
Yeah, Amherst College is proposing to relocate their salt shed. They purchased 40 Dickinson Street. It was the old Chevrolet dealership just west of the train tracks. And so that would need a site plan review application that'll likely be coming forward. And then the solar, Shrewsbury Road solar project, there was a preliminary subdivision plan filed. It's been filed twice. It's since expired, 7 months since it was last time. So they might be coming back soon to submit the same subdivision plan, probably in the next month or two, maybe
Okay.
later.
All right. Let's see, planning board committee and liaison reports. Bruce, anything on PVPC?
There's a meeting tomorrow, so next time, I promise.
All right. Jesse, housing subcommittee?
Nothing we haven't discussed really.
All right, Angus, CPAC.
I've been voted on it. I have not been sworn in yet. So I was voted in on, what was it, last night, I think.
Okay. All right, and then any word from Karen on our design review board?
Sure. I let her, we exchanged emails and she can continue serving. I said I would just go into the system and pull out what's been done. And so she was worried that would be too much work for staff. And I said, that's fine. I can communicate with her again. So really, in the last few months, they've looked at, 4 projects or just sign projects in the downtown. So, Vera Cruzana changed location, a new restaurant opened, the Closet opened next to Town Hall. And so their work has been really just, minimal changes to storefronts. They haven't had a lot of, other projects. So.
Okay. All right, time is 9:53. Report of chair. I don't really have anything to report. I did think we should, I had two items I thought we should make sure we talk about before we're done. One is Bruce's non-business get-together on Saturday. And the second was, Nate, you and I talked about canceling our next meeting so that Bruce and I could attend the downtown design review working group without missing this meeting. So, Bruce, you are on the downtown working group, right? You're muted.
Yes, I am, and I noted that the meeting coincided with what I thought was going to be a planning board meeting. I didn't hear back, but so
Yes,
yeah,
that was expected to be a conflict.
yeah.
And
Yeah, so staff thinks it's, yeah, sorry, we don't have, there's the Atkins project that is continued to that evening. We don't need a quorum to continue it again. And so staff thinks it's important for, Bruce and you, Doug, to be at the downtown design working group. And so we don't have any other business, public hearings or anything that's too urgent. And so, I would probably ask Johanna as the next officer to attend with Pam and I for 2 minutes to continue the archipelago project for another meeting. I don't think they'll be ready anyways. And then we would the planning board would not have, we'd have a night off and we'd meet again, as regularly scheduled November, whatever meeting that is in November 9th. Yeah. 5, November 5th. Yes.
November 5th.
okay.
So unless someone really wants to meet on the 22nd, I think it's the downtown design standards has been delayed. There's a working group. It's a large number of people. They have draft standards. So I think it's really important to have as many people there as possible on the 22nd for that.
Okay.
It's also my birthday, so I'm expecting a cake.
Oh, okay. Well, we need to let the consultant know. Okay, and then Bruce, you're hosting us for a social discussion this Saturday at 3?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And I think it's fine just to come in the driveway and park on the side. It's 159, 161. It's the co-housing community, and my house is the Red
And
Barn.
that's on Pine Street.
Yes, on Pine Street. It's near State Street, but it's my house is the Red Old Barn. It's got a golden kangaroo finial on the porch, hard to miss. And then we'll be basically out on the back side of that, sitting on the porch and on the grass probably. And this is raining, in which case we can do it inside. There's plenty of room. So come and have fun. I got a table tennis table as well set up outside, so kids can play on that if they want.
All right. All right. So that's all I wanted to make sure we talked about during my report. Nate, anything on your report?
Yeah, I think I mentioned there was the 2 zoning petitions that council referred to the planning board. And so I think the planning board should hold hearings on those. It can be in the same evening. That'll probably be the second meeting in November. So we have 65 days from the date of referral, which would put us on December 10th. So I think, the November 19th meeting date would be a public hearing to review those. At that hearing, we can talk about, say, the merits of it all and everything. I don't want to jump in. So, there's 2 petitions. I think I forwarded them to the planning board. The council meeting will probably be uploaded later this week. You could watch it. It was a 2-hour discussion. And so we, at the hearing, we can hear from the proponent, board can ask questions. We can decide how we want to move forward with it. The ADU zoning amendment is going to go to town council on October 20th for the first read. So, we closed the hearing, the CRC did. I think the town attorneys reviewed it. They I don't think they had any changes, maybe 1 or 2 minor ones really. So that's, that'll be something the council will hopefully vote on by the end of November. So that's, that'll be on the books. And then the housing production plan, just to give you an update, the CRC is still reviewing it. So they're meeting tomorrow to review it. Some of the members have questions about some of the information in the housing production plan, detailed stuff about number of students, also about some of the strategies. And it may be that they want to have changes made to the plan before it goes back to council in November. And if that does, I'd probably just bring it back to the planning board just so you see it again. I think I explained to the CRC that, the planning board, you looked at what you thought was under your purview. And generally, right, I think there was an agreement that the plan provides a good framework. And even if we don't like something, it's not enough to deny it, right? We just don't have to move forward with that strategy, or we can change it after the plan's been adopted. I think the CRC is of the opinion that before they adopt it, they want to make sure it says what they want it to say. And so, for instance, one of the strategies is build more student housing, and people don't like that. To me, it's like, well, that's what the consultant thinks is important, right? To help solve the affordable housing problem in Amherst. They don't say who should build it or where. It's a strategy. And to me, the idea would be after it's adopted, now we decide, well, what do we do with that idea? But let's not say remove it from the plan. Anyway, so I think that's moving through the CRC. The hope is it goes back to council this year to be voted on in late November or December. I really want it to get voted on. I think, like I said, once it is, I'd like for the planning board and the housing trust and CRC to have a combined meeting at some point too, to kind of talk about how do we work together and how do we, divide tasks or priorities and see how we can move it forward. And so I'll keep you, up to date on that. I'm hoping it moves forward. If not, maybe we schedule a meeting with the housing trust anyways, just to understand what they would like to do and what the planning board would like to do.
Is CRC the last word on that?
They're making a recommendation to council. So in order for it to be sent to the state for approval, the council has to adopt it. And so, the planning board, you voted to recommend it, and the CRC is not quite there yet. So they could in the next meeting or two not get there and recommend to council not to adopt it. I think they have to get it back to council for November 7th or something. Their recommendations back to council by November 7th. So.
Okay, Angus.
Yeah, just two quick questions. One, should the housing and zoning subcommittee look at the petitions, or should we save it for a full planning board discussion? And then second question, has there been any progress on a full-time planning director for the town?
Yeah, so the zoning petitions, let's wait for the full hearing, and then we can decide how to move forward with that. If we want to, typically it's the planning board by statute. State law is the planning board that holds the hearings. If the planning board then wants to have the housing and zoning subcommittee work on it as part of that hearing, they could. So we'll wait till then. And yeah, the search for the director of planning and economic development is probably going to be concluded in the next few weeks. And so there's been finalists, and it's just going through that process right now.
All right, Nate, anything else from?
No, we covered everything else on my list, so that's good.
All right, anybody have anything else? All right, time is 10:01 and we are adjourned.
Thank you all.
Our next official
Thanks,
meeting
everyone.
will be in November,
Right.
November 5th, I think Pam told us.
Yes,
Our next unofficial meeting is Saturday at Bruce's house.
that's right.
All right.
Night.
Thanks.
Good night, everyone.
all.
Okay.
Night, Pam.
Good night. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
Recording
Bye.
stopped.